What's up, everyone? It is Sunday night, and it's a little after 9, so that means it's time to wind down your weekend with Bat City Comic Professionals. As always, I am here to guide you along your way. I am Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, and with me I have Wednesday Phil. What's up, Phil?
Hello. How's it going? I actually have something to plug.
Woo, you have something to plug?
Very quickly. Yes, Josh, another volunteer here at Bass City, and I started a comic book podcast. It is called Panel Junkies. We have 2 episodes currently up on Spotify. Hopefully in the next few days I will get them up on all the other platforms as well. But we tell our comic book origin story, and then of course we do an Ant-Man and Wasp review. And then we're about to put out just a conversation about Adam's Strange Adventures, the Tom King book. So yeah, check it out if you have Spotify. In the next few days, it'll be everywhere else. And we're also on Instagram at Panel Junkies. So check it out. You know, if you're looking for another comic book podcast and a sea of a million other comic book podcasts, then yeah, check it out.
Sweet. You know that you had to wait until we were live to do that because there's no way Matt would have let you say Spotify if it was pre-recorded.
That's why I didn't say anything ahead of time because, and that's the thing is at the moment there's no need for money. It's just something to do for fun. Yeah. But it'll be on all the other ones. I just I use Anchor to upload it, and they're actually owned by Spotify, so it automatically uploads to Spotify. But I like using their platform because you can link all the other ones. So you upload it to Anchor, and then they upload it to everywhere else.
Oh, nice.
So, but yeah. So,
sweet.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah.
You had a crazy week.
I did. I left at 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning, which was after processing all the comics on Tuesday night.
That's crazy.
So it was like, I think it was 11:30, like when we finally finished on Tuesday night, and then my flight was I had to be at the airport at 5 a.m. And so, but I went to Comics Pro up in Pittsburgh. A lot of people messaged me and they were like, "Oh man, is Pittsburgh really cool?" I don't know, because I didn't really see any of it. I got to the airport and I ended up waiting for another person who was gonna need a ride as well, who actually owns the collective here in Florida. Okay. So it's super cool to get of course, out of all of the hundreds of people that would go, I would end up randomly selecting sharing a ride with another Florida store. So it was super cool to get to talk to them about Florida and how things have been going here. But so we got there, and I had a whole crazy mess with my room, and I said we were at Comics. I was at Comics Pro.
What's Comics Pro?
Well, Comics Pro is the retailer summit. So they're most trade professions have some kind of trade organization that oversees, it's the retailers, or it's kind of like a union, but not really, because they can't really control all of those things the way a union necessarily does. But it's for independent businesses within a trade to come together and kind of say this is what we'd like to see happen in our industry, and maybe move towards some of those things. So Comics Pro is the trade organization for comic books. So anybody that's a store owner or a store manager, or really some of the purchasing managers were there. Some people are I'm the marketing manager. Just anybody from a store that works at a retail at a retail comic store can be included in the event, can buy a ticket to go with their store, represent their store. And so I got there, so the Wednesday, and the one thing I saw was that Wednesday the thing didn't start until 8 o'clock at night on Wednesday. Registration was at 8, so they did a brewery tour. So nice. I got to go. I thought it was going to be Yingling and Rolling Rock because they're there, but it was the craft breweries. Right. So we went to 4 or 5 of them. So I got to see that little area. I think they call it the Strip of Pittsburgh. That's all the downtown places. That's kind of all I saw. And they had a Smithsonian, a branch of the Smithsonian there, and I passed by that. And so walking back, and so that was kind of the most I really saw of Pittsburgh itself. I did see the giant side of the mountain and the incline. I passed by the Pirates Stadium in my Uber, so that was super cool. I was like, well, they're not there because they're in my town. But it was really cool. And then it was a really great conference. You get to hear from all of the publishers what they have coming up. So of course, like Marvel and DC were there, but Image, Boom, even like Skybound had a separate presentation from Image to talk about just like what the Skybound imprint is doing. Vault was there. There were so many incredible things. And then Yin Press and Kodansha and Viz Media, who are all of the manga distributors, were all there. So that was really cool to see them. What did you say? Bad Kid. They weren't actually like vending there. They own the Bad Kids Press people, who we love. They are actually the people who own Kamikaze store, which is an Eisner vending store, and so they were there for their store. But it was super cool because they came up to me and were like, "Oh my gosh, Shannon, thank you so much for talking about our books on your show." And I'm like, "Thank you so much for making cool books." Yeah. Like, we're so excited. And they gave me, and I actually did not bring it, but they gave me a really cool signed little ash can for GWF. And we talked about how depressingly sad that first issue turned out to be. Yeah. So if you haven't read it, the Galactic Wrestling Federation is great. It's going to be a good book. We talked a little bit about where it's going, and I'm super excited for it. Sweet. But it was so cool to get to see all of those things. Joshua Williamson was there, who, for indie fans, of course, Nailbiter and Dark Ride, but he is also kind of championing this DC slate that we're seeing right now with the Flash and everything. That's the new Superman things coming up. And so it was really cool to see him. He signed a special exclusive foil copy of Superman 1 that'll be coming to. You'll be able to see it soon. But it was super cool, and he's super nice guy. He like went to all the events, like even like the after hour parties and stuff. Like Josh was just like hanging out there. Got a sneak attack surprise from Kyle Higgins. Nice. Who showed up to talk about the future of the Massive Verse. So that was really cool. And then got to just like have some incredible time at roundtable discussions with a lot of the publishers. So SourcePoint was there for roundtable discussions. We got to, and Josh Werner and Garrett Gunn were representing them. So it was really funny because I saw Garrett in the vendor lounge, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're here for SourcePoint. I love you. Like, thanks so much." And he was like, "You love me or you love SourcePoint?" I was like, "I mean, Good Boy is really great, so we could just go with you." And he was like, "There you go. That's a great answer." And then I had to like take a selfie because he also knows one of our old Bat fan volunteers in Austin, Brian Lassiter, so we had to send selfies to Brian and tease him. But it was really great to get to talk to them. Battle Quest was there, so I got to talk to them about the new books that came out that we're going to talk about today, like Trident of Aurelia and the Nomad trade, and just how beautiful Nomad is. I got to talk with like IDW. We got to talk to the originals. Oh, and yes, and one of the most fun things I got to do all weekend long was hang out most of the week with Avi and Josh from Silver Sprocket. They were incredible. Avi gave me so many books, just randomly, like in bars. Avi'd be like, "I found this one, you need it." So thanks for that. I'm super excited, and he actually sent home a special gift for Matt, which was super dope.
Sweet.
So it's so excited to see and spend time with Silver Sprocket. We talked all about Everything Sucks, and we talked about Fun Girl and how we always want to talk about Fun Girl on the show, but we can never show anything for Fun Girl, so we're always just like, "You should read this book, it's incredible. Don't just trust us because we can't show you." But there's a lot of really cool books coming from Silver Sprocket, and these two guys that nobody's ever heard of were there. Their names were something like Ed Piscor and Jim Rugg. I don't know. Nobody's ever heard of them before. But they were actually our keynote speakers, and then they did round tables. And so you got to sit down, you and Jim and Ed, and like for me it was 3 other people. So there's 4 of us at a table with them, and they just wanted to know what cartoonist kayfabe could do to get more people into comic book stores. Like, what else can they add to their show to draw people in?
Publish their own comics.
Yeah, I mean,
that's all I would ask.
There's some things that they're gonna do, but so they, they asked like what they could do, and they thought just to help us out, they would give us some things, and I brought them for you. So there is a signed book plate from Ed Piscor and a signed Hulk from Jim Rugg just for you.
No way.
So you have to show the audience too, because
sorry. All right, so there's the button, of course, that sweet logo. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic, dude! Check out this Hulk. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to frame that. I'm gonna frame both of these. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was really hard to get it over here without you seeing that it was here. So, but yeah, it was super cool of them to give us those things and to just want to support comic book stores. And there's so many of the people. I mean, the swag was just incredible, and thank you to all of the publishers for the books and the stickers and the book plates and the hats. Boom gave us all beanies. Like, I mean, you could just anything.
Nice beanie.
It's a nice beanie. Like, it's just so many things. Like, I was talking to Viz Media and Kodansha and all of them about we need more manga that's made for under 10-year-olds. That's not licensed manga. And they just started giving me whatever they could find on their tables that was for 7-year-olds, because they're try these and see if they're appropriate. And so I just got all of these books to kind of fluff up that section from people, which I really appreciate. So it was incredible. It was so much fun, to just have those opportunities to talk to people and to hang out with them and to get to know them. The other store owners, they're incredibly amazing people. There was so much inspiration and wonderful things. I got to hang out with the team from Lunar, and Christina, the founder of Lunar, and I have the same birthdays, so now we're best friends.
Joint birthday party?
I think we should. They have these really dope jackets that their warehouse members all have, and I told the warehouse member and Christina, I was like, look, Christina, you know when my birthday is now, so if you want to hit me up and add to my shipment Taylor's jackets, I would love one. But it was so cool. Penguin was there to talk about that. And how they're working to improve some of their boxes and things like that for us. So there's so much of hey, we're hearing what you're saying. We want to make things better for you guys, and here are some of the ways that we're doing that from so many different people. And just getting to sit with so many of my favorite small presses. Chris from Opus. And I got to hang out when I first got there on Wednesday, and then when I did the round table with him, he was like, what is it you want? And I was like, I want Monsters of Metal to be an ongoing series, dude. It's so cool.
More Evanescence.
I told him that on your behalf, don't you worry. And A Wave Blue World was there, and I got to hang out with the founder of A Wave Blue World and the founder of CEX, and we talked about how great Past the Last Mountain was and how much it made us cry, and just some of those great books of the Saga of the Doomed Universe, what they're doing.
Yeah,
and
hire that guy for whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. And then I got to meet the people behind Viz8 Media, which we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
With two of our new books. So it was really exciting. And it's just so much fun. Honestly, I think we mentioned this last week, but I would not have been able to go at all if it wasn't for BINC, which is the book industry's charity organization. It was started by employees at Borders. Back when Borders was a thing, as a way to help fund things that they needed. And when Borders closed down, they were like, you know what, booksellers still need this. We're employees, so we own it. Nobody can close this. And so they continue to run that charity. And it helps people in the book industry in any capacity. So booksellers in the mass market or booksellers in the comic market. It helps us to get help if you have, dental emergencies or just dental work in general you need, or if you need new eyeglasses and your insurance doesn't cover eyeglasses or you can't afford it. How many times can you not afford your premium with your insurance even though you have it? And they help with that. I personally have a friend whose house caught on fire, and BINC helped them get the funding they needed to cover getting new clothes and everything for their family and into an apartment. And our representative Judy is the kindest human. You see like on TV those like perfect humans who just like want to help people, and they have those cute voices that are soft and gentle, and you're like, I just want to hug you at all times. That's Judy, and she was such a help. She created, this was the first year they've had a scholarship for Comics Pro, and they gave out 2, and I was fortunate enough to receive one, and it was such a benefit to be able to go, and such a wonderful experience, and I was so happy with it. And we do an auction at Comics Pro every year to raise money for Bink, and they ended up there were so many items, and they were getting bid up so high that they eventually had to call it for the night, because the hotel said our time was up, and run the rest of the items as a silent auction. So I have no idea how much money we raised for Bink at this event, but I know it was far over $10,000. So wow, I'm really excited, and just shows the generosity of comic store owners, because they were just, and distributors and publishers, because they're all in there for that, and they're all raising money. Boom gives away 3 months of ads in Boom as one of the items. It's like every Boom book you can cool. get this, and so that's like a prize. So the publishers are giving up so much to help with this, and then the store owners are bringing really cool original art and books and old displays that you can't find anymore. Wow. So it was awesome. I cannot wait to tell. I will tell you all of the stories in person, because otherwise we'll be on this live stream forever. So we're gonna wind down your weekend, and we're gonna talk about comic books. I was laughing because we had a couple of people who said, oh, I'm just sad because I miss reading my comics because I'm here. And I was like, well, I have pretty much every independent comic with me. If anybody needs them, they're in my hotel room. You're welcome to check them out. We'll set up a library system.
A reading party.
Yeah. I was like, I got to wind down my weekend when I get back. So we're going to drink Lisabella's Pinot Noir. It's a 2016, and it is an Italian dry red wine, which is pretty much what I would expect from a Pinot Noir. It looks very light in some capacities for Pinot Noir, but...
So prior, I feel like lately we've had several Pinot Noirs.
We've had some.
But I feel like mostly we didn't.
No, because they're not really one that it's darker and drier, so it's not usually one that I would think you would like. This is actually really light, though, for a Pinot. It's not actually as dry as they say it is. I expected there to be no sweetness to this, but this has way more sweetness than I expected.
Tastes like wine.
But did it burn you?
Not as much.
Yeah, because I was going to say, without that, because it really has no dry kick to it at all, but...
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Well, it's usually on BOGO at Winn-Dixie if you ever want to try it. But cool. Well, we are going to jump right into this week's new comics. I've been talking nonstop for 4 days, so my voice might go in now. But we're going to jump into it. We're going to talk about all of the indie comics that came out this week. There is a lot of new number ones, so I think we're going to probably fly through some of these first half, and then give a little bit more time to those series ending and those series starting this week. So to kick it off at the very beginning, we have issue 4 of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World from Boom Studios and Jason Aaron. And I love this book. I know you read the first one, I think, right?
I've just read the first one.
Yeah. It's been such a great book. It's all about Mezzy and Mace, who are two very completely different people stuck in the post-apocalyptic world. And it's kind of like a serious version of Turbo Kid, almost, because you're in this post-apocalyptic world and there's people there's a girl and a boy and there's people chasing them. But Mezzy has been trained her whole life to be a ranger. And as a ranger, that means she's supposed to lead them all into this oasis. She's part of this survival group. And she abandons her group because she figures out that they're not exactly the people that she was raised to believe they were. And while she is on this trek of her own to this oasis, she ends up meeting Mezzy, or Mace, who is the sheltered kid who has lived in his tower his whole life, and all he has with him is his inventions to keep him focused and happy. And he decides, you know what, I'm going to go out on this adventure with this girl, and we're going to see where it goes. She needs me. And they go out on their trek, and at this point in this issue, we've come to a point where Mezzy is on her own, and Mace is being held hostage, and we kind of see a great backstory of who the Rangers are and how Mezzy got on this path of being on her own. This is great. It's labeled as, like, it's labeled Volume 1. Like, they call it Book 1. So you know this is going to be a pretty long ongoing from Jason Aaron. I would assume it's going to be kind of like some of his other books that he's done that on, that kind of, you get those like almost mini series, like 6 issues, and then he kind of takes a break, and then he brings you back like a volume 2 kind of thing, where he knows from the beginning that he's doing that, so he kind of labels it that way. I'm hoping so. It's been such a good one. It's a fun ride, and I love these characters so much. And in issue 1 we saw a teaser of the future, so we know it's leading somewhere.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast, and someone had said that they think it's going to be better to read it in trade form, the way that it's written.
I don't know. I like reading it as a single issue story. I like seeing, like, it's one of those where I get that, because you don't really want to wait. Because when you read each issue, like, Jason Aaron's just really good at giving you that cliffhanger moment. But I actually think that those little snippets give you so much information at a time, and such a fun, like, feel good between the characters that you, like, it is episodic. It's written very episodic to me. So, up next from Oni Press, issue 5 of Action Journalism with Kate Kelly. I did get to tell Oni Press that I'm obsessed with Pink Lemonade, and it made my heart happy.
Did you tell him you also like Action Journalism? Okay. Yes, this is a wonderful sort of anthology series about your Lois Lane character, essentially. She is not only a journalist, but she is also just awesome in every right. And she's kind of like also a mixture of like James Bond, being sort of a spy and a hero in her own right. And in this issue, she is going up against a character named the General, who tried to create the super soldier serum and realized that he could do it with just everyone. He could create a toxin and shoot it out and pretty much mind control all of these super soldiers. So Kate teams up with one of their first test subjects, Captain Steven, who is pretty much like your pulpy Captain America character, and they team up to save the people of the city and take on the General. It is a ton of fun. I mean, I love this book. It's got everything. It's got a little bit of comedy. It's got your superheroes, and of course, Kate Kelly just being the fantastic, awesome female character that she is. I think it's a really fun book. Lately, I feel like we've been crying a lot with a lot of the stuff we've been reading, and I feel like this is kind of one of those fun ones that you can put into place. Just kind of mix things up a bit. And also, if you're a big fan of Lois Lane, which I think everyone should be, this is like kind of one of those fun indie versions of her character. It's 5 issues in. You can really come in and read any issue and not feel lost in any way.
This one does kind of connect to the end of issue 4, though. So this is the only one where I would say read issue 4 and 5 together, but everything else has been kind of unconnected.
Yeah, that's true, because they do kind of talk about, they show off the Superman-esque character of the city, so it kind of picks up a little bit where issue 4 left off.
Speaking of issue 4s, from Image Comics, we have Plush issue 4. This is the story of some furries who eat people. But it's all about a guy who wakes up one day and realizes that he found out that his fiance cheated on him, and he kind of just hates his life. And his buddy's like, hey, you know what will make you feel better? Going to a convention with me, dressed like a furry. Let's go. And he goes to this convention, and he's like, hey, this is all kind of weird. And he runs outside to get away from it and sees some people dressed in furry suits eating somebody in the alley. And it all kind of escalates from there very, very quickly, with him ending up in prison and prison breakouts and furry things and his fursona definition and just kind of falling in with these people. But this is from your team who bought you plastic and vinyl. And
I know that was the other one. I was like, is this the same creative team?
Same creative team. And much like those where you're like, this is an absurd concept and where are you going with it? You do find yourself emotionally invested in these characters very quickly and having emotional moments with them. And this is the issue for this series where you really see hey, this isn't actually just about cannibalistic furries. Like, there's a point to this story. So, Plush is really great. If you haven't jumped in, I would honestly recommend it. We see a lot of people coming in and grabbing this one off the shelf, and we've got a good subscriber network for it. So, it's not just me. There's a lot of people who are digging in.
I like this creative team because I remember when I first read Plastic, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like John Wick, but instead of a dog, he's going after his love of his life, which is a blow-up doll. And you're sitting here thinking, like, this is a very absurd idea. Even Vinyl feels very absurdist in a way, but you realize how humanizing and how, like, really well done the message is, kind of mixed in with all the weirdness of it. So I love when they put these books out. This is one of those creative teams where I get excited every time they got a new book.
Absolutely. Speaking of people who I'm excited for every time they have a new book, Kelly Thompson is back with book 2 of Black Cloak. This was such a cool first issue, kind of building us up a new saga-style universe because it is a detective story in a world where there's fairies and mermaids and things like that, and there is a group of people who are called the Black Cloaks, and those are essentially the detectives. And in issue 1, we saw the very first page shows that a prince has been murdered, and the person investigating it is somebody who was supposed to marry him at one point in her life, and the kind of just dives deep into them trying to solve the murder of this person immediately. And issue 2 picks up exactly where issue 1 left off. And we're seeing a lot more pieces of that puzzle come into play, but we're also learning more about our characters and some secret pasts that they may have and how that's going to really impact who they are as they go along their way. And again, if you're a fan of Saga, this is a story that this is your next book to pick up. Like, if you're one of those people who are like, I came back just for Saga and I only have Saga on my pull list, try adding Black Cloak. I think it'll lead you down a rabbit hole into more comics for sure.
I'm really bummed because I brought issue 1 home with me. Yeah. So I was like, I don't think I read this one. And then the moment I opened it up and I saw that art, I was like, I loved issue 1. You loved issue 1. And I can't believe I forgot to read issue 2 because I was like, oh, I haven't read this one yet.
Take issue 2 home with you so you can keep up.
It's a magnificent book, yeah.
Yeah. From Source Point Press, we have Zombicide, Day 1, Number 2. This is your Zombieland. This is the ridiculous team-up of people in a zombie apocalypse. Did you just read issue 2?
I didn't read issue 2.
Okay. This is, we see in the first issue, we have the classic guy who's been the doomsday prepper, who's just absolutely prepared for what's going on, come try to save the one person who's nice to him, which is a waitress at the local diner. And the two of them end up teaming up with an EMT, and they are making their way through the city, trying to get to his home where he has prepared his fallout shelter for this exact experience. And typical zombie hijinks ensue. We're adding 2 more people to the team in this particular issue, and maybe 3 more. I think it's 3 more. We might be adding 3 more people to the team in this issue. But we are definitely, if you are a fan of zombies, and honestly, if you lean more on the zombie land side than the Walking Dead, this is going to be more up your alley because it is kind of built around that fun, they're using chainsaws and things like that, and they kind of make those in tongue-in-cheek zombie jokes.
Yeah. And I like that first issue because, it definitely felt like a zombie movie I'd seen before or a video game I played.
It's kind of Left 4 Dead-ish too.
Yeah, yeah. But I enjoyed that first issue. It's fun, and I feel like a lot of the times with small publishers, they try and do something very different in the genre, and this was very much no, we're just going to hit it straight on the head, go full force, and it's been great.
Yeah. From the publisher whose name I never remember because it doesn't really say, Dren Productions, I'm like, because the logo looks the same, is the issue 3 of The Unwanted. And this is, honestly, if you're a fan of the TV show The 100, you're probably going to like this book. Or if you read the young adult novel, The 100, that the show was based off of. But this is a bunch of kids who are suddenly find themselves on an island, much like the one in Lost. And they don't know why they're there, and they have that moment of, well, we should build shelter, no, we should find food, no, we should do this. And as they split up and they start to wander the island, they notice that they're not the only groups of teenagers that have been left on this island. And so now they're kind of, are we in a training simulation? Are we in the Hunger Games? Are we in something like the 100 where we're the experiment to see if people can live on land again? They don't know. They have no idea. And they're all trying to figure out if they're going to work together or against each other. And this issue kind of leads us into the point where they're starting to decide how they're going to build these relationships out and who they can trust and who they can't. But it also gives us as readers our first tease into what is actually going on. So,
ooh,
yeah.
Okay. I'm curious about this Plan 59 from outer space.
Yeah, we're going to have to look that up because that looks good.
That cover looks cool.
Hey, Marco. Just saw my phone like shooting up, and it was Marco Fontanelli saying hi. Who?
Could you? I'm dying here. King Jira.
King Jira
came out 1 year ago today.
Yes, this is the 1 year anniversary. I knew there was a whole point. Yes, King Jira from Marco Fontanelli came out 1 year ago today. Also, we just had Marco's birthday this week, so what a great week for birthdays in Marco's world. So happy birthday, Marco, and happy birthday to the lovable King Jira, who I need to hug.
Have you seen the pictures he posts on Facebook? Dude, what a handsome dude. He's got like the artsy look with the hat and stuff. I'm like, what a handsome guy.
You have excellent hat game. Excellent hat game.
Honestly, excellent fashion style.
It's true.
Like, I look at his fashion sense, I'm like, that's a cool guy. and then I know what he does for a living, and I'm like, you got it all.
You're just living Phil's dream.
Excellent music taste.
Excellent music taste. Yes, you are living Phil's dream.
We haven't discussed music yet, he and I, so I don't know what his musical tastes are.
He likes Mushroom Head.
I mean...
My man.
I respect that. I went through that phase for sure.
We all did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday again, Marco and King Jira. If you want to celebrate Marco's birthday, you can buy copies of Pentagram of Horror from your local comic shop, or King Jira if you can find copies, or you can buy them, either of those, directly from Scout Comics on their website. So, or probably from Marco on his website. You should ask. If you have a link for where they can buy them directly from you, Marco, let them know.
Yeah, follow his social media too, because he posts so much cool stuff. And I'm just like, gosh, I just want all of this. Just take everything you've ever done and put it into one giant omnibus. So
Second that.
Yeah.
Second that. From IDW and their original imprint, we have issue 5 of Earthdivers, Kill Colombus. This is the story of what if we get to the end of, an apocalyptic type experience in America and we realize that what went wrong was Christopher Columbus coming here. And just the downward spiral of everything that happened with the land being destroyed and taken from the Native Americans. And so a group of Native American people figure out how to travel back in time, and they send one of them in their group who is a linguist. And he goes back in time to work on Christopher Columbus's ships to try to kill Columbus before he could get there. I kind of love that concept because, everybody always does we have to go back in time and, kill this historical, person. But we never really see it be a Columbus situation. So I love that they took that on in this story. And it's just been a crazy adventure because, it's one of those, time travel. They know this. They've studied it. They're like, if you mess up the whole point is we want to change something. But it's we can only change so many things before it might make it worse. And what's cool about it is we do have the people in the modern time, trying to figure out, did it work? And they don't have any clue because it's a one-way mission. So they're there's no way we're going to know. He's not coming back. So we're we have to figure out how to figure out if it actually worked. And they're every issue they're kind of like, oh, we're still dealing with this and things are still bad. So maybe it didn't work. And so you've got two big adventures going on at the same time, which makes for a really cool way to see time travel and to get a great story out there.
I assume that 9 times out of 10, the person who goes back in time to do it would die, like, very quickly. Because he almost does. In that first issue, it's almost immediately like he starts screwing up. And people are like, I don't trust this guy, we should kill him. And he works his way out of it, but I'm just like... I almost want there to be a point where they're like, okay, I mean, this was like the 20th dude that we sent back to the past, because... And
he really, like, almost, like, messes it up hardcore in the first one. Like, he barely gets out of it, and he's still dealing with those repercussions.
5 pages in.
Yeah. He, like, uses the wrong form of Spanish, and they're like, he's not using the kind of Spanish that Columbus actually spoke, and they're like, what language are you speaking? And he's like, and he's like, oh crap, I used the wrong one. So it's great because you do get those moments, and then he's like, what do I do? I'm God, kind of thing. Like, trying to do all that. From Scout Comics, we finally have issue 2 of Killchella. For all of you people who are fans of the music festival Coachella, and for all of you people who think that if you ever went to a music festival, you'd end up on a true crime story, they have created a comic for you. Because this is a horror book that takes place at Coachella, and it stars a girl who is trying to get really like she's becoming an Instagram influencer, and so she invites all of her friends to come stay with her as they go to Coachella. And at the same time, there is a bunch of people who are on their way to Coachella to kill people in honor of their favorite musician who is performing there this year. And in issue 1, we see a couple of murders happen, and we see them kind of tagging this social media, like this musician on social media, and using like this special hashtag. And in issue 2, we learn why they're doing that and how it's going to come into effect for them. And I don't really know how we're going to have in issue 3 because things got really crazy really fast in issue 2. But whatever happens in issue 3, I'm totally here for it because I need to know how we're going to get out of like the giant writing hole that we sunk into.
Okay.
Thanks for not showing anything from the back half of the book because it is entirely spoilers from like page 4 on. Like, it got fast. It gets bad, crazy fast.
I may have shown 1 or 2 things then.
It's okay. It's okay.
I couldn't tell.
Matt says you couldn't tell. You would know. It would be like, whoa, that.
Yeah, because I remember last time I spoiled something, you were like, that's a spoiler. I was like, good to know.
Yeah. From Band of Bards, we have issue 2 of Coins of Judas. Did you get to read it? I think I had it with me. I don't know if you had it.
Yeah, I didn't get to read it.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I think I stole that copy. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But Coins of Judas, there is kind of this is one of those we talked about last week, how some comic trends start to like, or some trends start to like fluctuate through all of comics and books in general at different times. And right now we're kind of seeing the coins that were cursed connect to the demons. And like, if you have one of these coins, you can control demons. There's actually 3 books on the shelves specifically that have everything to do with that. They're like drawn around this. And in this particular story, we are seeing a sibling set who are trained to slay demons together, and they the sister's just gotten out of jail, and she finds out that the brother has made all kinds of bad deals with demons and cults and things while she was gone. And in this issue, they are having to fight to deal with those mistakes that the brother has made, and they're fighting demons in it. And it's kind of, I almost put this at the end because like the endings, because this is kind of like the ending of the prequel essentially. Because it sets it all up and they kind of wrap up what's happening in this moment. And it sounds like there's going to be a minute of delay before they come back, and I believe they're going to have a subtitle when they come back. These 2 issues were kind of your prequel to what's going to be seeming like the longer version of the story to come of what the siblings are going to do in this mission that they're going to have to retrieve these coins. But if you're, honestly, this is like the Supernatural, the TV show. This is like the Supernatural version of the trend that's happening right now, because it's the siblings and something happened to their parents, and they are like kind of hinting about like, well, when dad trained us, well, when dad, this happened to dad and this happened to dad. So it feels very much like like Sam and Dean going on an adventure and talking about, like, they don't even mention their mom, but they talk about their dad training them before he, like, disappeared or died. And I feel like, so this is very great for Supernatural fans.
Okay. But there's no Jensen Ackles in it.
There is no Jensen Ackles, but he could, honestly, the brother could be played by Jensen Ackles easily.
Yeah.
Yes, did you read this one?
I did not.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know where you are, because we didn't talk about what you read. Did you read this one?
No.
Okay. Okay, I don't know what you read this week, so I'm just going to keep talking. Also from IDW Originals is issue 3 of Dead Seas. If you don't know, backing up for just a second, IDW Originals. So IDW has become known in the last, like, decade for being a licensed publisher. You know, they do Godzilla, they do Ninja Turtles. For a while they were doing a bunch, but I mean, I think they still have My Little Pony, and Transformers, and they had G.I. Joe, but they don't anymore. Ghostbusters. So they just kind of became really licensed, intellectual property, like, focused. Yeah, and as some of those licensing rights ended, they decided to jump back into doing some original stuff, and they launched it with Dark Spaces, which is a anthology series from the, like, mind of Scott Snyder, essentially, and he wrote the first series, which was Wildfires, and I believe the other ones to come won't all necessarily be by him, but this is one of the books on that imprint, the original line, and this is Dead Seas, and it is about a man who is in prison, and they tell him they'll shorten his sentence if he goes to work on a ghost ship. And essentially what that ship is it is a place where they have been storing ghosts and basically harvesting their ectoplasm so that they can use it for fuel and, like, essentially it, like, works like glycerin and like they can use it for all kinds of things. And so these prisoners have to go work on there, but immediately, as you know, in a book like this, everything goes wrong. And some pirates come in and try to steal the ectoplasm. And now we're in this Titanic-level, epic, like, ship problem, but with killer ghost on the loose. And a bunch of prisoners who all hate each other trying to deal with it. And the cops in charge of them. So, you know, Prison Break meets Titanic meets Ghostbusters. I don't know what else you need. Yeah.
Nailed it.
From Boom Studios, issue 5 of Damn Them All, which is not ending on the next issue like we originally thought.
Okay.
But Damn Them All, this is Constantine, if Constantine was a woman. This is about a girl whose uncle trained her to use magic to control to get demons exorcised or control them, or to basically keep evil out of our world. The uncle dies before the series ever starts, and now we are following her as she's both investigating her uncle's murder, but she is dealing with, as we said, the new trope trend kind of thing of the coins of the demons, the coins that control demons being loosed upon the world. And this goes much more than any of the other books into the actual details of all of that. Like, she has her uncle's story guide that tells her this is where this is who this demon is, this is how you control them, this is what they're going through. And so we get that information. We get to learn about one of those, like, 72 demons that the coins are tied to, or 2 or 3, depending on how many she encounters with the story. And we get to see her doing all of the magic. So this does feel really like old Hellblazer, like Vertigo era Hellblazer. Coming back to you, but she even wears the same outfit. Like, I feel like this is, like, officially the outfit that you need to wear when you're doing this job, because she's in the trench coat and the white shirt and the tie half the time. Very, very much a great book for those who kind of miss the Vertigo days of Constantine. This is a good one to get into.
Sweet.
From Aftershock, we have issue 2 of Bulls of Beacon Hill. This is the most recent Aftershock title, and this is about a man who is running for political office, but on the eve of his announcement that he is planning on running for office, his father, who is the biggest mob boss criminal type guy in the city, decides that he's not okay with that, and he doesn't want his son in the public eye and doing any of the things that he's trying to do. So he sends hitmen after his son. And you get to see the backstories in both issue 1 and issue 2. We're kind of seeing these backstories of why the son and the dad have such a tumultuous relationship, and why they don't want him why the dad thinks he shouldn't be the way he is. And you see this in this one, the issues of him maybe being more like his dad than like he wants to admit, or at least people seeing that from him, as he deals with some of the hitmen that are coming after him. And he kind of has to make the decision of, am I gonna go home with my partner and kind of live my positive life, just, be running for office and being a good person, or am I gonna end this once and for all? And kind of sets up a lot of choice. Steve Orlando is writing this.
Yeah. And
Steve Orlando has done a really great job of putting the conversation of not just like, like this story of a parent who's a mob boss and the kid who wants to do good and separate himself in it, but also the story of your parent doesn't understand who you want to be, or who you are. And so this is like, the parent doesn't understand that he wants to do good, but he also doesn't understand that his son is queer. And so Steve Orlando has worked both of those into the narrative of this story in a really good way. And I feel like there's so much of it that people can identify with some of the backstory of like his childhood and some of the moments in the now where he's like, having these experiences. So it's a really good story that I'm glad we're still getting. I know there was like talk about whether or not some of the titles were going to be coming out, so I'm glad we're still getting this one because Steve Orlando's doing a great job with it.
Yeah, his indie work over the past year or two has been solid. Yeah, very solid.
Absolutely. From Source Point Press, I'm not going to do that yet. We're not going to do that. We're going to save that one for in a little bit. We're going to put it down here. Okay. Moving up there. We're going to go to Dhalia in the Dark, issue 3 from Madcave. I like to call this the part of the resurgence of Madcave because we've seen so many books, like since Speed Republic and Bountiful Garden, I feel like we've seen so many like all-star books coming out from Madcave. And I think this one is flying under too many people's radars. It starts with a man who's kind of at the end of his rope in issue 1. He's always been the guy that kind of ran packages for the mob and did other things. I guess he did other things. He was kind of like their lead hitman, and he messed up, and now he's kind of the package delivery guy. That's like the only thing they'll give him. And he ends up teaming up with the number one hit person in the group, and they are supposed to deliver a package. And along the way, he does, in fact, open up the package between issues 1 and 3 and finds out that it is an actual fairy princess who is being trafficked away or running away or hiding away. We're kind of not sure like everybody seems like double-crossy in the story, so it's not sure if it's like she's been kidnapped or if they're kind of trying to sell her off to this other group, or like everybody seems like they're double-crossing each other. Like there's a point where the person who hired them to deliver it then calls the people who are chasing them and literally tells them like exactly where they are. So it's completely like, ooh, I don't trust anybody on every page of the story. But then you also add in this fairy tale, like, are these fairy creatures and these supernatural beings that are all in it as well. And there's a whole side of the story that's, about the fairy culture and like how the fae are dealing with their politics and how this missing princess essentially is going to come into a big play. So this has been, every issue unfolds more and more to this world. And you're like, where is this going? Like I feel like you're making this massive universe, and how many issues do I have? Because I want this to build out even further. So yeah. I hope this is going to be a more of an ongoing for them. I think the only ongoing we've really seen from Madcave recently has been Nottingham. I think everything else has been kind of more of a mini-series. So I hope this one keeps going for at least 12.
I feel like eventually they'll get to that point where they'll do more ongoings. But, early on, small publishing, it makes sense to primarily stick to the mini-series.
Yeah. speaking of fantastic miniseries that are essentially ongoing, we have issue 2 of volume 3 of Barbaric from Vault. This is the most ridiculous story. Did you get to read this? Are you caught up on Barbaric? Where are you?
I am in the middle of volume 2.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Because I know that the Wassels have stated that they're going to continue to stick with the 3-issue format for Barbaric, so I'm kind of letting it get a little bit ahead, because I feel like every time I start reading Barbaric, I'm just like, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
You know, if I could just like Groundhog Day over and over again read Barbaric.
Then you're good, because this is, you have a one-shot in between volumes 2 and 3.
Okay.
And then you're going to have the 3 issues here, and then there's a lot more to come.
Okay.
So, but if you don't know Barbaric, it is a barbarian, a berserker, essentially, who is cursed for just being a blood-hungry person to only be able to kill people who need to die, people who are deserving of it, and only for good reasons. So he has to answer the call for anybody who needs help. But the fates who cursed him gave him a buddy to help him out in the form of a talking axe who gets drunk off of blood, and it has a very alcoholic problem and a very foul mouth. And he makes for the most entertaining sidekick. In volume 3, I don't want to spoil it too much because we are in volume 3, but Owen, our berserker, is separated from Axe. And he is on one adventure that kind of fills in some of the backstory of how Owen got to the point that he is, and how he became who he is, and we're starting to see some of that play out for him. And Axe is running his own fun adventure with Soren, who is our necromancer from the series, and some new buddies that they made in volumes 2 and volume 3 now. So you're gonna laugh your way through every issue, but you're also getting, like, it seems like in this volume specifically, they were like, okay, by the way, we also do have a story.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just going on, like, because, like, volume 1 to volume 2 kind of feel like, oh, we're just going to go on these different adventures, and you're just going to kind of see his quest to help people. Volume 3 strung all of that together in the first issue, and I guess kind of in the one shot that came before. It's kind of strung it all together, and now we are actually seeing everything unfold of like who these characters are and what's actually going to happen, and Owen's quest continues to try to remove the curse from himself.
Okay, I'm glad the necromancer stuck around because I think she was my favorite from the that first volume.
Oh yes, she is around and she is awesome.
Yeah, because I was afraid that they were going to kind of do this idea where each volume he would kind of team up with somebody different.
Yeah.
So I kind of like they kept her around.
Yeah, they're still going. They're just adding more friends and everything. The gang gets bigger every time. From Image Comics, we have issue 3 of Radiant Pink. For you Massive Verse fans, which is the Radiant Black universe from Kyle Higgins, this is another one of your minis that tie into it. Have you been reading Radiant Pink? I didn't think so. You're not. You are on like issue 3 of Radiant Black, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still early on, and then when they were like, oh, it's going to be a universe, I was like, oh, that's overwhelming now.
Yes, and there is so much more to come for the Radiant Black universe. We have not seen anything yet.
What's the one that's connected but isn't?
Supermassive.
No, there's one that doesn't have the word radiant in it.
Oh, there's a couple. Dead Lucky is the one that's on right now.
Yeah.
And then Rogue Sun is also a good one to read. And Kyle Higgins, like I said, was at Comics Pro conference this last weekend, and one of the things he said was the good thing about all of the Massive Verse titles outside of Radiant Black is, well, they don't actually connect to Radiant Black. Like, they only come together in the super massive, like, crossover. Okay. So if you're like, I only want to read Radiant Pink, you can. You don't matter. And so this is essentially the story of a teenage, like 20-something college-age girl who gets superpowers. And the thing about her is that she is a social media influencer, and so she's trying to hide that it's her but also cover it first, And much like that, if you modernize the Spider-Man story of being the person to turn in your pictures to the newspaper, she is trying to cover herself for her social media influencer campaigns. And in the process of doing that in issue 1, she goes to save an EMT and who is in the hospital. And with a hospital that is in danger, and ends up getting sucked into a portal with the person that was at the hospital. And now the two of them are kind of just going through all of these different worlds while they try to figure out how they can get home. And in this particular issue, we meet the world's most adorable alien, who is a giant cat who can get down to actual cat size, and his name is Kitty Kitty. And he is from, I think it's the planet Kitty Kitty, but he's like the heir to the no, it's the planet Kitnip. And he's heir to like the Kitsner throne or something like that. But his name's Kitty Kitty. And it's so funny because there's a part where Radiant Pink is like, here, Kitty Kitty. And then he like walks up and is like, he like bumps into a button and it translates. And he's like, you could just call me by my name. And they're like, what's your name? And he was like, my name is Kitty Kitty. And she's like, his name's really Kitty Kitty. And like freaks out. And I was like, this is exactly how I would be if I met a giant alien cat that I could also like pick up and it would shrink down to like cat size. Yeah. Basically, if there's an alien planet filled with cats, call me.
Oh my gosh. If that's one of those where like they were like, hey, we have to send a group of people up into space to this planet full of cats, I would grab my cat and be like, we're going.
Be like traveling to Mars. You'd be like, I'm down.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
NASA, when you need somebody to go to a planet full of cats, call the wind down your weekend and we'll do a special episode. And only one of us will return because Phil will never leave. From Dynamite Comics, we have issue 2 of Darkwing Duck. Look, if you're a fan of the show Darkwing Duck from the 90s and you've always wanted to get dangerous again, you just really need to read this comic because it is just episodes of the show. Like, honestly, if you're enjoying the Saturday morning adventures for Ninja Turtles and you were a Darkwing Duck fan as well, this is your Saturday morning adventures for Darkwing Duck.
It hits all the tropes. You get all the characters you want.
Did you read this one?
I did, yes.
Go for it.
Yeah, in this one, he battles Quackerjack in a toy store, fittingly. And it's really great because Quackerjack has this little stuffed banana that he's like best friends with. And he also uses like a million rubber duckies that he has controlled to fight Darkwing Duck and Launchpad and his daughter
Goslin. Because ducks.
And so yeah, and of course it's like the thing I love about this series so far is that just as much of seeing him as Darkwing Duck, they do continue that emphasis of him being a father. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that seems to be a very strong running theme with this series so far. But yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the cartoon, if you want all those Darkwing Duck things that you got as a kid, I mean, it hits all of it. It feels very much like that. And yeah, 2 issues in, I mean, it's been such a fantastic series so far.
Yeah, and if you or anyone you know has that original run of Darkwing Duck comics and you have the Killing Joke homage of Quackerjack you would like to get rid of it, I know a great charity organization that you could donate that to.
That is a hard one.
It's a hard one to find, and it is expensive when you do. It's amazing. I love that you laughed because you knew exactly where I was going with that because that cover is gorgeous.
Well, I remember when I was just trying to go after some of the single issues. Mm-hmm. And some of those, just the single issues alone, are very expensive.
Yeah, they're not readily available either.
Yeah, I feel like people who collect Darkwing Duck comics have no interest in selling those comics.
No. Up next, from Band of Bards, issue 2 of Vigia. Did you read this?
No, because this also was not in the box.
I got it off the counter. It was on the counter. So I thought you left it there. Oh, well now you should take it with you. Because it's so good. Vigia is all about a young girl and her AI that have crash landed on a planet. She is a science officer who's kind of been doing, like you see on Star Trek, going to different planets and getting info, and they get pulled in by a tractor beam to a planet that is completely desolate as they see when they get there, but everything seems to be underground, and they are met by a really cute little robot who tells them he needs to get them. The only way they can get out of town is if they can get into this city and get the signal turned off, and he can help by rebooting the whole entire city, but he can't get into it, and so he sends them in, and this is not it's not as easy as he made it sound. When they get inside, things go bad really fast. The second half, don't spoil it for yourself. You can probably show that one, and that's probably like the last one I'd go is once they start to get things up and running for the city might not be what they thought it was. So it's great. If you are a fan of anything like sci-fi, honestly, this issue kind of almost felt like I Am Legend, where it was like, he's like got all of these things, all the different things coming at him and stuff. The second half of this book really kind of feels like you're alone in the city and the city is fighting back kind of thing.
I remember enjoying the first issue a lot.
Yeah, it's a good series. I think that this is probably the most young adult that I've seen from Band of Bards, but it definitely seems to stay like pretty young adult in how it's flowing. From Invader Comics, we have issue 3 of Back to Dhalia. I know you've read one of these. I don't know if you read 2.
I read 1, and then I remember when we showed issue 2 on here, I was like, oh, I wanted to read this because of the squirrel.
The squirrel, he's so great. This is a story of a bunch of kids who kind of got I Hate Fairyland, where they went off to a fairy adventure in another realm of cuteness and wonder, and kind of like lived out their lives there, essentially like the princes and princesses of Narnia. And then they come back, and of course they're still children, and it hasn't been any time. And in issue 1, their parents think they've been like attacked by somebody, or they've all had like one of those conscious like delusions together, and so they never get to see each other ever again. And then turns out something bad has happened in the realm of Dhalia, and the only people who can save the day are these kids who are now adults living their lives with no knowledge or want of knowledge to know that they have been to a fairyland. And the first couple of issues where, or I guess issues 2 and 3 have just kind of been getting the band back together by force, really, in some capacities. And in this particular issue, we find out that one of the kids actually has become president of the United States. And so trying to get this particular kid back with them is a little more of a quest than they thought that they were going to have.
Okay.
Yeah. Fun story. Absolutely. If you just want a good adventure and you do like things like I Hate Fairyland or even Enchanted, like this kind of feels like a blend of those things. Also from Dynamite Comics, we have issue 3 of the new Gargoyles run. Have you been doing Gargoyles?
I've read issue 1 so far.
Okay. This is done by, what I was told, I don't know, I have still not looked it up, I'm terrible, but I was told it was done by the actual writer of the show.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the writer of the show has basically, the way that they treated Buffy after Buffy went off the air and we wanted more, and we got those additional seasons in comic form. This is kind of, hey, we're going to give you the additional seasons in Gargoyles in comic form. And it picks up really close to where it left off in the show, with some of the new characters and everything. And just gives us this new adventure that, much like the Darkwing comic, just feels like you're watching episodes of the show. And in trueness to the show, of this kind of show versus Darkwing, it isn't as much episodic. It is more, you have to, like, it's not the standalone episodes of the show. You have to actually read this as one story. Like, this is an ongoing, one season is going to have like one story situation, and it follows along as a couple of the gargoyles are about to have a kid, and they are kidnapped, and they're kind of trying to piece who could be behind it. And that's kind of how they've given us the introduction of bringing back all of the characters from the show into the lives of the story. So if you are a fan of the show, this is another one that you this is going to continue your show. You have to grab it and keep it going if you want to. And if you're watching it on Disney Plus right now for the first time, this will be a great thing to pick up after you finish.
Also, Dynamite, if you're going to keep doing this kind of, let's bring in old cartoons that were on Disney, the Mighty Duck Show, where they were actual ducks, and it was very much like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah. That's the next one that I would recommend to do.
They have actually just announced that they will be doing this.
Oh.
They are going to be doing a Disney Villains comic line. So Scar has been announced, and this is Maleficent at the back of this. So they are going to be doing... I want a Madam Mim. I think Madam Mim gets skipped a lot and would make a great story, but from Sword and Stone, the bad witch in Sword and the Stone. She's such a weird, like, kooky character that I think she would make a great story.
I need to rewatch that one.
Yeah.
That one's one of those ones I watched a bunch as a kid.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
From Image Comics, issue 2 of Inferno Girl Red, also a part of your Massive Verse. Also a standalone if you are not reading the Massive Verse. This is the story of a young girl and her mother. And her mom has kind of been in a place where she can't get a job and she has nothing to do because she used to be a journalist who covered everything that went on for Inferno Girl Red. And she was almost the Lois to the Clark or even the Jimmy Olsen to the Superman kind of thing for working as like a sidekick to the superhero. And Inferno Girl Red has disappeared, and so everybody thinks the mom kind of lied about everything at this point and has been discredited as a journalist. And in the first issue, the daughter gets accepted into a special school, and the mom's just like, hey, we're going to move everything for you to go to this school. And as soon as they get there, some crazy space alien-y things start happening, and nobody is there to defend them because Inferno Girl Red has disappeared. Or has she? And so this is the story of who our new Inferno Girl Red is going to be. And once again, the mom gets dragged back into this story. And the thing I love about the Massiveverse is not only is it completely diverse with where all of the characters are from and their backgrounds and everything, but it just builds on these like human relationships in so much. Like Radiant Pink starts with it's a Latinx teenage girl, and it's her cousin and her grandma that are helping her. And in this one, we see this single mom helping her daughter, and trying to figure out like, hey, at the end of the day, the most important thing you can be is good. And the most like what makes a hero and what makes a person is the good deeds that they do. And seeing those conversations is what makes the Radiant universe, like the Massiveverse universe, so good, is that we're getting people who are like, I didn't want this. They're not people who wanted to be superheroes. They're almost always people who are like, this isn't the life I would have chosen for myself. And seeing them come to terms with just how a human can be a good human always ends up playing out really well. And this is only 3 issues for this first volume, so... And they're oversized.
Yeah, I was kind of curious because it says book 1, but part 2 of 3?
Mm-hmm. So this is the first volume of Inferno Girl Red.
Oh, okay. So book is technically volume.
Yeah, but it'll be there's 3 issues for this first. So much like Barbaric, we're going to see 3 issues, and then it'll go on a break, and then we'll get some more.
Okay.
So easy to jump in for. Up next, from Source Point, I brought the title, the page, the cover that confuses the crap out of me. But this is issue 2 of Nightwalkers. I almost said Stalkers. Nightwalkers. Yeah, super cool cover. I thought it was upside down when I handed it to you because it's so trippy. I know you read issue 1. Did you read issue 2?
I did, yes.
Okay. What's it about?
So this is, in that first issue, we have a group of people who are all at a rehab center. And one night, all of the orderlies and all of the doctors and everyone just kind of leaves and locks the doors. And when they all come out of their rooms, they realize, like, hey, what's going on? And then breaking through the glass is a monster which looks kind of like a vampire. I mean, look, they're vampires, okay?
It's called Nightwalkers.
But it does, not your typical Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt looking vampires. More of the, like, creepy monster vampire. And so in the end of that first issue, they're like, all right, well, we can't stay here because this monster's here. And in this issue, they are working their way through the woods, trying to find a town to get to, and they're being hunted by the monster. And at the end of this issue, they show up into a small town thinking, hey, let's take some rest and get some supplies and figure out our next plan. But maybe ending up in that small town was not the best decision. Things are about to get crazy.
Yeah. Very good for fans of 30 Days of Night. If you, like I half expect Ben Foster to be sitting in one of the rooms, and if they would just draw Ben Foster in, like, in 30 Days of Night, sitting in a prison cell to just, like, in the background, would make my day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's definitely, that's the vein of vampiric storytelling that we're seeing ourselves in.
Yeah. Also, too, there's, like, something, like, the first page or two kind of hints at maybe, like, something else that's going on in this universe, but it's, like, 2 quick pages, and then they're like, all right, never mind, back to what's actually going on. So I feel like they've kind of just, like, very briefly hinted at another part of this universe where I was kind of like, I don't really know what importance this has, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued.
Absolutely. In a very less serious note, from Ahoy Comics, we have issue 4 of volume 2 of My Bad. And this book has violence towards lizards. So if you or yourself are a lizard, please be careful, I think is the warning at the beginning of the book. But if you've never read My Bad, it's kind of actually, while it is ongoing, it's almost easy to just jump in and pick it up and read any issue. But this is Mark Russell's new superhero universe, and it's definitely just parodying superheroes in general. And we get a couple different stories in every issue, and it starts with where our first main story in this volume has been about I think we're doing Emperor King first in this one. So Emperor King, who is the villain, has decided he wants to date, and dating is really hard for villains. So he goes on a superhero dating app, and he's been masquerading as a superhero, and it's all blown up in his face. Apparently turns out good Karen is still a Karen, and she's not really happy with him. And then we get a story with Rush Hour, who is my favorite hero.
Mine as well.
Who is a minor traffic crimes superhero. So if you throw trash out your window or don't roll through a stop sign, Rush Hour is going to come your way. And he has just signed an agreement with a major corporation to be their spokesperson, and did not read the contract that he signed because he believed them when he said he didn't have to. And things are not going the way Rush Hour wants them to. And then the last story, we have recently had a caper going on in the town where people who have names like superheroes are being murdered by a pizza delivery person. And the former partner of the Chandelier has solved that murder accidentally. And now he is trying to deal with all of the attention and the superheroes that are coming his way when he really just wants to retire. And he has some very serious conversations with the Chandelier, who is our Batman kind of character, who literally wears a chandelier on his head because he's the heir to the Chandelier fortune, but definitely doesn't think anybody will know that's him. And they have some serious conversation about how life can suck when you didn't want to be a superhero. And we find out how that kiddo got his superpowers too, which is really great.
Yeah, I think this is a fun one. I actually listened to a Mark Russell interview not too long ago where he actually said that this series was created out of pitches that he made to DC Comics that they rejected. So a lot of these stories are things that he takes to DC first. DC's like, absolutely not. And then he goes over to Ahoy and is like, hey, can I go ahead and put this in this comic? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. You're Mark Russell. You do whatever you want. But I just thought that was really cool because it goes back to that first issue in the first volume where it's like the villain sends a gift to the Chandelier and he's like, how do you know who I am? And I love that was actually a Batman story that he pitched as a backup where he's like, I want to do one where the Joker sends Bruce Wayne a gift, and then at some point Batman's like, how did you know who I was? And the Joker's like, oh, I actually just figured that Batman is somebody who has a lot of money, so I just sent it to all the billionaires, and you were actually the one that just told me it was you. So I was like, that's so brilliant, and the fact that he was able to do it here.
He's even better.
I want every DC and Marvel writer to start doing that now. I think Mark Russell needs to do this as a series where anyone can come over and like call him up and be like, hey, I have this really great pitch that Marvel turned down. Can I come over and do it in my bad?
Would be amazing.
So yeah, let's do more of that.
You come on, Mark, make it happen. You know Ahoy will go for it. So.
Yeah.
From AWA, we have issue 2 of Trojan from Daniel Kraus. Did you read this?
Yes.
Go for it then.
I was very excited for this series because, of course, you see the Trojan Horse logo, and immediately you're like, okay, what's the Trojan Horse? I'm very excited for that. So in the first issue of this series, we had a young girl, Nessa, who is out in the city searching for this man who could help her find something on the dark web. And this is in a world where Fae characters exist, but actually in this universe, the term Fae is more of a derogative term, and they prefer to be called legends. And in that first issue, they find somebody on the dark web who is basically doing a hostile style kind of torture room for these characters, and people can kind of watch it. And she says, hey, I need you to help me find that guy. At the beginning of this issue, she actually goes into the forest where all of the Legends characters are. So you get to see like trolls, other fairies, all these really great characters. And you learn that she is essentially their hero. She's going to be the one that's going to help kind of bring them back into being accepted by society. And then she gets back together with, I think his name is Dirk, the guy that she teams up with. And he's like, hey, I found a contact to help us find this guy on the dark web. And they go to meet up with him. And it's pretty awesome. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. The end of this issue, I immediately was like 1,000%. I'm all on board for this. The reveal at the end of this issue, I was just like, yes, 100%.
I had a conversation with Axel Alonso, who's the editor for AWA, while I was at Comics Pro, and I told him, I was like, when I read issue 1, I was like, oh, not another Red Room book. Like, there's a lot of them. Like, it's getting too, like, there's too many of these, like, graphic books, and I was like, oh, where's this going? I was like, but it's Daniel, and he goes, oh, I know, same thing. When Daniel came to me and said, I want to do a story about a Red Room, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I want to do a story about, like, snuff. He was like, it exists. It exists out there. Right. We can say it doesn't all we want, but we know it does. And I was like, well, what are you going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And how are you going to make it different? And he's like, and then Daniel told me his plan for the whole thing, and I was like, oh, let's do it. Yeah. And I was like, after issue 2, I was like, okay, that's not actually what your story is about. Like, you're not just going to make another, like, Red Room book. And I was like, okay, this is going to go in a different direction. I'm curious to see how this goes.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the issue. Like, if you read issue 1 and you were like, I don't really know, read this issue and then make your decision, because this put it over the top for me for sure.
From Image Comics, we have issue 2 of Immortal Sergeant from Joe Kelly.
This book is absurd.
Well, tell them why you think it's absurd.
So, in the first issue of Immortal Sergeant, we are introduced to the Sergeant. Mm-hmm. And he is your grumpy, old, grizzled, on the brink of retirement cop who's seen everything, done everything, has a million stories, and, is just kind of done with everything, but also has that, like, rough past. And I was kind of confused at first with this when this issue started, because it's different characters that we don't see in issue 1. And it actually turns out to be the sergeant's son and his wife and kids. And they are actually getting ready to go and visit the sergeant. Mm-hmm. And it's really great because we get to see how this family interacts. The husband and the son of the sergeant is a video game creator and is struggling with getting stuff done. The kids are like very impressionable, also like high energy. How you would expect young kids to be. And they're very much not looking forward to going on this trip because it turns out that the son and the sergeant do not have the best relationship. And when they get there, it is just... It's like all the like family drama that you love to see because like the mom, like the sergeant's ex-wife is now remarried and he's very much like, you know, she remarried to a woman and he's very old school in the way that he thinks and speaks. And he also loves telling war stories to the kids. And the son's just like, will you please not tell these stories in front of my kids? He's like, I told them to you two. They're fine. I take out all the bad stuff and just to say all the fun stuff, and it's absolutely not how that works.
And I love the flashbacks that you get, like when he says that too. He's like, I told him to you and you were fine, and it shows the son like sitting at the table and the start of a bunch of the dad stories, and then it shows the son lying on a therapist couch, like telling the story of his dad telling those stories. And I was like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, fine, Dad. And I was like, I love that. It does a really good job of showing emotions through the artwork.
Yeah.
And the little things. Like, this is one of those where if you are good at reading human body language, you're going to get so much more out of the story because it's so much of the little way, like, the wife looks away from the husband where you're like, ooh, she is so mad at you right now. Or, like, oh, like, the even the server at the restaurant, it makes like a comment and she's like, oh, how do you guys live with him? And they all have like their different response of it, and then you just like see the grin, like the fake grin on the server's face, like in the picture. And so they did such a great job of capturing that human element for this slice of life story. But there is actually supposed to be a detective story that goes on in the background, I believe, based on the solicit. So
I think we're gonna get to that because in that first issue it definitely hints at like there's some cases that he may have worked on that either never got solved or still kind of weigh on him in some way. So
the original solicit was that they are going to have to, him and his son are going to have to team up to solve the last case. So I'm guessing we're getting there soon. Wow. So it's going to be a fun time for sure.
I mean, with this creative team, they did I Kill Giants, and that's a book that I hold in very, very high regard. So I trust the storytelling aspect of it for sure.
I'm going to slide this over here. We'll talk about that later. We're going to switch to Eternus from Scout Comics. This is issue 2. This has been a long delay from issue 1, which was also long delayed. This is the story of the Greek gods who are kind of in an upheaval because the one god has come and things are happening, and there is somebody who's going around trying to destroy them all. And in the first issue, we saw one of the gods be attacked for one of their weapons, and in this issue, we see another person who is kind of like, oh, I think I figured it out. They're going after all these different pieces of the god's military, and we need to look for this one particular god, and they have these like shin plates that go on their knees, and they're like, we have to find them. They're going to try to steal these, and we get to see how that scenario plays out. And it's very classic to mythology in that, you know, they tell you like, oh, this could be the worst thing that could happen, and then you see the other side of it where it's actually playing out, and it is like the thing that could happen, and you're always like, oh man, what if they do this? And then like they do the thing, and you're like, oh, I knew that was gonna happen. Now we're stuck, and now this bad thing is gonna happen. And it's super great. We're seeing a lot of like the Gorgons, like the Medusa. We're seeing a lot of those classic characters really come into play. And this is the brainchild of Andy Serkis. So, if you are a fan of Gollum and any of the amazing other things that Andy Serkis has done, this is actually like his concept that other people are helping him write. So,
very nice.
Super cool book. We've got some books coming to an end this week. We have issue 4 of Dead Maw from Dark Horse Comics.
Oh, it's only 4 issues?
Only 4 issues, and we definitely see a crazy ending to this. If you did not read Dead Maw yet, you should. I think we talked about that just a couple weeks ago. But Dead Maw is the story of a bunch of teenagers who sneak into an abandoned, deserted mall to get to drink, to party. And while they're there, all this weird stuff starts happening. They end up in all kinds of crazy delusions and traps. And the entire story is narrated by the evil entity that has trapped them in this mall and is causing all of these things to happen. And we kind of see each of the teenagers get picked off classic horror movie style by this different being as the time goes on. And this brings us to our conclusion. Who will survive? Who won't? What happens at the end of the night?
I don't want to go too much further.
I know, don't, because there's so much.
I think I'm 2 issues into this, so
yeah.
Now that I know it's over, I'm like, all right, I gotta sit down first. I think what I need to do is I need to take like 2 or 3 extra days off from work
and just catch up
and just come in and catch up, because I feel like even there was an issue in here earlier. The Dim them all.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, when did this get to 5 issues?
Yeah.
I remember when we did issue 1 and 2, and so I feel like I just need to come in one day, take all the books off the wall.
All of them.
Yes.
Every single book. There's not.
I'm going to bring a blow-up mattress in here, and I'm going to set it up with snacks, and I'm just going to sit in the corner and read.
That will not be any different than half of the other times that you've ever come in.
I know.
So, we'll just, the classroom will be closed that day, so Phil can lay on the floor and kick his feet in the air.
I'm going to build, you know what? I'm going to build a pillow fort. Giant pillow and blanket fort.
I've done that before in the old store, so it's worth it.
Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah.
Sucking on treats. Reading comics.
I'm gonna have one of those giant bins of the cheese balls.
Well, now Matt's gonna be there with you if you're gonna have giant cheese ball bins.
Love a tickle fight.
With the wink. The wink was the deal sealer. I know. Now you lost him. While Phil recovers from the beautiful invitation from Matt, we have issue 4 of volume 3 of Good Boy Forum from Source Point Press, and I moved this earlier because this is the end of this volume, I think.
Oh, okay.
It literally says not the end at the end, but I don't believe you. I think this is the end of this volume. But for those of you John Wick fans who always wondered what it would be like if it was a dog trying to save Keanu Reeves, I've got a story for you. This is Good Boy. It is about an anthropomorphic dog who works as a partner in an assassin kind of business, and his partner is killed, and in volume 1 he goes on a quest to avenge his partner. And over the course of time, he in volume 2 he retires to the farm, which I love because, of course, in the dog world, you tell your kids you sent their dog to the farm or whatever. Yeah. But also, that's what they call the offices of, the FBI. Yeah. And so it works so well because he's, this assassin agent guy, and he retires to the farm. But, You can let the dog out on the farm, but it's just never going to end, and this old dog can't be taught new tricks, and he gets shot back into it. And in volume 3, his family has been threatened, and so now he's, too fast, too furious over here, trying to save his family, and they are all... he's back into it, trying to save his group, and this issue, I literally, gasped out loud at one point, and was like, oh man, I wish I would have read this issue before I had to sit next to Garrett at that table, because I would have had things to say to him about this issue. Okay. But it's so much fun. It's one of those books that it's ridiculous going in, and you love it. And if you ever do get a chance to meet Garrett Gunn, in the first 3 minutes of talking to him, or 3 seconds, you're going to be like, yes, you definitely wrote a book about a dog that is John Wick. He's just a fun human as well, so it just goes with that kind of storytelling. From Aftershock, we have the conclusion of The Vineyard with issue 4. And shout out to Aftershock for telling people this week on their Facebook page that if they are looking for The Vineyard, they can find it at Bat City Comic Professionals. So we appreciate the shout out to Aftershock, and we are loving Florida, to answer your question, because I have not responded yet. But this is the story of a family that owns a winery, and they own a vineyard, and they are known for having the best wine in the world. And in the course of time, we figure out that the reason their wine is so good is that they make sacrifices every year to Dionysus, the god of wine and debauchery. And in this story, we kind of get we get the mom who doesn't want to be a part of it, and she is trying to convince the dad that they should stop. The dad has had an accident and can no longer do the sacrifices. And since it's fallen on the mom, she's trying to end the fact that the family does this. And instead, the adult son has taken it over, and he is doing sacrifices. And at the same time, the prodigal daughter returns, and she and her boyfriend come back to the family, only to find out that they are doing these sacrifices and bad things are happening. And that might be not good to show on the screen. Is that what your face is for?
No.
Okay.
I'm getting the series. I haven't read it, but I've been on Wind Down Your Weekend this whole time, slowly learning this. And every week there's a few more spoilers.
Oh, no.
As to how this series is going. I'm very interested in it.
Yes, read it. It's amazing. It's super cool. And don't show any more than that. That's as far as you can go in this story.
I don't know, Matt. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's encouraging other people to see how cool it is and jump in.
I just find the pages that look beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see the pages.
Oh, okay.
I was like, the daughter comes back?
Oh,
I didn't know the daughter
that's an issue
I thought
one.
I was spoiling.
Yeah,
okay.
me too.
No.
The daughter comes back in issue 1, and that's part of the drama of the story. I actually didn't tell you any of the details of the story at all.
Fantastic. I'm still interested.
Yes,
I
and
thought
you
she
should
came
be.
back in this issue, and
No.
everyone's like, oh, I know. Is she going to take the thing over? I'm following along.
Yes, I know. You're following
Vicariously.
along. Well, we have all 4 issues, so you can come read it. And speaking of wine, I just want to once again give a shout out to Lisabella and our Pinot Noir that we are drinking today. Because if we're going to talk about the vineyard, we obviously need some wine to wind down your weekend and talk about comics with. So, also ending this week, you read this one, so you can't get mad if I show anything. Issue 4 of Specs from Boom Studio is out this week. From, I always say one of my favorite creative teams that just worked together for the very first time on this book, David Boer and Chris Sheehan. This is the story of 2 boys who decide that they're gonna, they start talking about ordering the magic glasses out of the back of a comic book that say they can grant all of your wishes. And then they don't actually do it, and yet the glasses still show up in issue 1 on their doorstep, and they decide, hey, let's use them. And in issue 1, they make a wish that the bully from the school would leave them alone forever. And in these monkey paw cursed items kind of way, the bully goes missing, and they are immediately accused of something nefarious going on. And the more wishes they make to try to get themselves out of trouble, the further into trouble they get, because we all know you have to be careful what you wish for. And if these kids would have had Charles Soule to guide them along how they made their wishes, like he does in 8 Billion Genies, maybe their story would have ended differently. But it's a really great story, classic, like that classic not really scary horror kind of genre movie, where you just see, like Monkey's Paw, that story where it's like the things that you wish for and the decisions you make are kind of the things that will really change what happens in your life. And you can't wish away life. You gotta live it. What are you gonna say?
I'm really glad that you showed that last panel of the 3 houses. That's one of my favorite Chris Sheehan panels of all time.
You give me those looks, and
I know. I was like, wait, which one is
am I doing something wrong?
We just had it. I
That
zoomed in very
Oh,
close.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of the house
That was
over
a great
time and the sun setting behind it.
And if you look closely at the street signs, that is the corner of Sheehan and Boer.
Oh, that's fun.
Chris made the streets.
He likes to do those little Easter eggs.
Yeah, we were one of them. He put the Bat City, original Bat City sticker on the locker in issue 1 of Specs. But yeah, I love looking for the things that Chris hides in their art, because it's always cool. From Dark Horse, we have the end of the ones from Brian Michael Bendis. I know you read issue 1, but I don't think you've read anything since then, right? Oh my gosh, you need to catch up. This is the story of a guy who is told that his job is to bring together all of the chosen ones from different aspects of life to save the world from the Antichrist being born. And in issue 1, he does bring them all together and he gives them that proclamation, and they say, you know what, we're gonna let it play out. We're not really sure that this really involves us, and none of us want to get involved in the situation, and so they let the Antichrist grow up and the devil take over the world, and then they realize they are, in fact, going to have to do something about it. And this issue brings them face-to-face with the devil himself. There you go, please show it. Face-to-face with the devil himself, and they have to figure out how they're gonna stop him. And I love it because everybody's got a superpower except for like one person in the group, and the devil is just like stuck on the fact that this one person, he's like, what is your thing? Are you a vampire? Are you a demon? Are you this? Are you that? This is definitely, I think, just the end of volume 1. I think we're gonna see a volume 2 out of this because the end does leave us on some cliffhangeries. So I can't wait to see what volume 2 holds for us, because this book has been quite hilarious and just a fun adventure. And who knows, I just need to know now what's going on with this character that Brian left us on a big cliffhanger about. So check it out. If you missed like a lot of the older Brian Michael Bendis stories, I think this kind of brings you back to some of those like fun days. From 10 Ton Press, we have issue the last 6 of Becoming Frankenstein. It doesn't have an issue number on the front. I had to figure it out. Issue 6 of Becoming Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
I love this book because A, it looks like an EC horror book in the art, but also B, it's printed on newsprint paper, which is fantastic. And this is also a book that I love because it is the story of Frankenstein. Up until this issue, it has just been how Victor Frankenstein became a college student. It's how he got involved in the sciences that he did. It's how he met Elizabeth. It's been how he got tied up with all the people he works with. And in this issue, we finally see Victor create the creature. And I love that it's not really the focal point of this issue, but it is kind of, or the focal point is on that madness that has made Victor who he is. And if you're a fan of the Frankenstein book, this is probably one of the closest things you're going to get to that actual story. It gives you a lot of Percy's prologue from the story. If you read that, like the preface that they had to make for Frankenstein so that they would sell Mary Shelley's book, because all of the publishers were misogynistic dudes in the book in that time period, and they didn't want to publish a book by a woman. If you read Percy Shelley's preface at the beginning of our prologue at the beginning of Frankenstein, this kind of has a lot of that information. So it almost feels like the before Watchmen of Frankenstein being the Watchman, and kind of gives you a lot of that backstory that eventually ties into what went on in the actual story. I love it. It's great. Frankenstein fans, you gotta have it.
Must.
From Scout Comics, a book that I never knew we were gonna see the end of, because I think it's been a year since issue 5 came out. The issue 6 and final issue of Red Shift is out. We have not covered this book in probably a year or longer. But
I remember, like, we were talking about issue 2 or 3 back in Austin, it feels like.
All of the last issues we talked about were in Austin.
Wow. This is the one where, like, the first issue, the cover is him, like, hitting golf balls on Mars? Yeah, I remember this.
So this is a story of a boy who volunteers to go on a mission. They all live on Mars, and he's basically going off to do more deep space reconnaissance. And he volunteers for the mission because his mom had volunteered before him, and she's been lost in space, and so he volunteers, leaves his little brother at home, and over the course of the series, he gets lost in space as well with the partner that he's on this space mission with. And this issue is kind of a double-sized issue because it seems like they, did take so long, and instead of doing a couple more issues, they just kind of put everything in this one. So we get him getting discovered and where he's at and what's going on with that, but we also get to see the solution of what happened to the mom, and we get to see what happened to the younger brother, and we get to see what's happened to Mars as it's like spiraled over the course of the series into war. And then we get to see all of those things come back to play in this issue, and then kind of get their wrap-up story. So it's a great book if you are a fan of space books and sci-fi, and honestly, really those family stories. This is great. A family adventure for sure. So you should definitely pick it up. It might be hard to find a lot of the older issues because it has been so long. So wherever you shop for comics, your LCS might not have them, but I probably can assume, or you probably could assume that Scout probably would. So if your store doesn't have them, you can always buy directly from Scout Comics off of their website, and they probably have copies and cool variants of different issues. We've got some number ones. First up from Titan Comics, we've got Moriarty, Clockwork Empire.
Yes, this was a very heavy book. Lots of talking in this one.
It's a Sherlock Holmes book.
Yeah, it's Sherlock Holmes. And in this, he is going after, what do they call them? Automatrons? Is that what they're called? So basically,
Automatons.
Say it one more time.
Automatons.
Automatons.
You got it.
Okay. So that is essentially where we are in this story. He is going around. This is where there's lots of gambling going on, and it turns out that there are these cheating automatons that are basically counting cards and figuring out ways to cheat all these rich, powerful men out of their money. And Holmes and Watson are tasked with not only basically figuring out which ones are robots and which ones aren't, but also trying to figure out who is actually behind it. But we also get Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in this as well, which is pretty interesting. So it kind of has like a few... There's one other one too, isn't there? There's one other character that they introduced at the beginning of this. Oh, Lady Lee May as well. Also, this cool poster in the middle. Yeah, this is a book that's like very, very wordy. It's a lot of sophisticated men sitting around smoking cigars.
Yeah, because Mycroft comes in. And so you get Sherlock and Mycroft sitting around talking about that. And if you don't know Sherlock Holmes, that's his brother, who is actually probably smarter than Sherlock, or at least on less drugs. And so you never know. But you get a lot of conversations with him and Watson and Sherlock. This is, if you are a fan of the BBC Sherlock, if you are a fan of the Doyle books, if you are just a fan of Sherlock Holmes in any capacity, even the Robert Downey Jr. version, I mean, any Sherlock, you're going to love this. You do get some of those, all of the more book elements, or even like the from hell almost aspects of Sherlock Holmes, but you do get all of your Sherlock all mixed into it, and it does read like a Sherlock Holmes novel. Like you said, it's got all of the heady dialogue and storytelling. It's fantastic, though, if you're a Sherlock fan. I wish I had been wearing, like, my Sherlock shirt, like, while I read it, because it felt like some of the most, like, in the way that Becoming Frankenstein is like, oh, you are just reading Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. This feels like you're just reading a Sherlock Holmes book. Yeah. But with pictures. Go this one.
I did not read this one.
You didn't read that one?
Yes, and the only reason why is because it was in a bag and board and not on the wall. And I was afraid to take it out of the bag and board. But this is one that I really do want to read.
Yeah, you should definitely take that home. This is Katsune by Scout Comics. This is issue 1. And this is, if you know, Katsune is a fox spirit in Japanese culture. And so this is essentially your samurai story. But this particular fox is kind of the character from Rogue One, the blind man in Rogue One who can destroy everybody, like, and knows where everything is, and his friend that walks around with all the weapons. These are just those two characters, but as anthropomorphic animals. And you're kind of getting that story. They're on their own adventure together, and they see these two kids who need help, and they help the two kids. And the kids are like, oh, as a thank you, we would like to take you back to our place and feed you. And he's like, this is a trap. And so they go back, and of course there is, always trickery involved, because you do have a Katsuni. Usually it's the Katsuni who are known for the tricks, but this one is kind of the wise beyond his years samurai kind of character. It's great. It's just a fun, like if you're a fan of Little Red Ronin or even Usagi Yojimbo, like this is probably going to be something that's in your alley. It feels like it's in my alley. What about this?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I did read this one. This is Local Man #1 from Image Comics, and I believe it is Tim Seeley, right? Yes, Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks.
And Tony Fleeks. Mm-hmm.
So, wonderful creative team. This is essentially an homage to 90s Image books. You have a guy who is headed back to his hometown after something happened. He was a superhero named Crossjack on a team called Third Gen, and he did something wrong. We don't know what that is, and now he has basically been told he can't be a superhero anymore. So he goes back home, and of course everyone in the town's like, oh, we hate that guy, like, screw you. They pick fights with him, they throw things at him, they're like, we don't want you around here, like, you're a disgrace to everyone. Even the mom's just like, you're a disgrace to our family. And while he is at one of the local bars drinking, he ends up running into one of his old nemesis and fights him with a trash can lid that he uses as a shield. And towards the end of this book, the Third Gen team comes out and gives him like this like cease and desist order, and is like, you're not allowed to use shields or fight any type of villain. And he's like, look, he attacked me and it was a lid of a trash can. And they're like, it doesn't matter. You can't use anything that resembles a shield.
Which I wonder if is something that they were told at Image with their heroes when they left Marvel.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's definitely where Marvel and DC were probably like, oh, you can't use this, you can't use this, none of this type of imagery. And then, of course, also, too, he runs into an old friend of his from his days in high school before he was a superhero. But I really like this. I love when creators who have worked for either Marvel or DC or both, who kind of tell these superhero stories that aren't necessarily your straight up superhero story. It's kind of taking that world and doing something different with it. I love this first issue. I think this is a really good first issue, and it's one of those creative teams that I think is going to, just do a wonderful job all around. But yeah, great first issue.
From Source Point Press, we have Legion of Darkness, The Fourth Eagle, which is a one-shot.
Okay, it is, right?
It is
okay.
definitely a one-shot. I think it says in the back. But this is the story of some guys who are on the hunt for one of the Roman, like, SPQR eagles that they used to have at the front of their legions. And they are on the hunt for that because they want to be able to kind of give these people, it seems like it's a treasure hunt at first. I guess I should say that. It kind of seems like one of those treasure hunts, like, oh, I want to be the one to find it. I want to be the one to find it. And then what ends up being really cool about it is they are actually trying to bring some peace to the spirits of people who were in these battles. And it's kind of just about helping these soldiers get to lay to rest finally. So it's kind of a cool twist on what you see in the story, because it does kind of just feel like these people are hunting for an artifact for themselves. But it is this kind of really cool story of, like, it's really quick. It's a very quick read. You just kind of get this nice story of these three guys who are just out on this adventure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I read this and I was like, wait, is this a one-shot? Are they going to continue this? Where will this even go?
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't say, I don't even think it said in the back either.
Yeah, maybe not. But it's definitely, I don't feel like it can go anywhere else. It definitely feels like a one shot. I think it might have been, maybe it's listed on paperwork. It's one shot.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I made it up, but it feels like a one shot.
It definitely does. Yeah.
From Source Point as well. This one says one shot, so maybe that's not a one shot because this one is labeled one shot.
Okay, which is also weird because this doesn't feel like a one shot.
And it's not. It says that this one says there's another, like an actual story to come. I think.
Okay, because I read this and I was like, this is definitely not a one shot.
Yeah, maybe they mixed up the labels, but this is the rejected. Fallen.
Yeah,
that's
the
it.
rejected. Fallen.
I was like, that was like.
I'm a little uncertain of what happens in here because this is also very wordy and it's very poetic, and very ingrained in religion. But I was mostly here for the art. I'm always a big fan of really wonderful pencil work. So I'm gonna take a shot at this. I believe.
Go on.
It is about a angel who decided to turn in his powers for mortal love. And that mortal love was taken from him. And he is basically now he's at a point where he's like, okay, should I have given up all of my powers for this love? Was it a mistake? Should I return? And he is approached by a darker, also potentially was an angel, not really sure.
Well, all demons were angels that fell.
Yes. Okay. So then, yes, it is this awesome demon-looking dude right here. And he basically is like, hey, we all have been where you've been. Maybe we could team up and do something. And change the way this game is played. And he's basically like, nah, I'm good. I'm this super powerful dude in this knight in shining armor kind of get up. And it's just beautiful.
You nailed it.
I did?
You got it.
Okay.
I'm so proud of you.
I wasn't really sure because there were so many words where I was like, wow, these are big words. And I'm not really sure. But I was also mostly just staring at the artwork.
Once again, comics teach more unique and better vocabulary than any other form of literature.
I will tell you right now, though, I will never use any of these words because I didn't know what most of them meant.
You're supposed to look them up in a dictionary when you don't know what the word means.
I don't have a dictionary on hand.
You have a phone. But yeah. Oh, and apparently I put 2 copies of that in there, so I really wanted you to talk about it. But yeah. Really cool. Honestly, like I said, if you're a fan of manga, this has like that, like some of those bigger, deeper, like manga style art mixed in there. Where some of the details are like elongated and weird, but the pencil work is meant to like highlight that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Very Junji Ito.
Yeah, but there's no air writing or whatever he does in all his books. Where people fly on the air.
Oh,
Air writing.
Air writing.
Yeah.
I don't know what he calls it, but it's almost like every book.
Every book.
He's got that. And I was like, why isn't that in here? You're going to look like that.
You got to ride the air, man.
Yeah.
From A Wave Blue World, we have issue 1 of Tower, which is all about a young girl who wakes up inside of a room. And it's kind of like that scene in The Hunger Games where she wakes up in the Hunger Games and they're like, okay, why is this up in the Hunger Games? And they're like, you have to go get your weapon, choose this, choose that. But this girl has no idea what she's doing there, so she has no idea why they're telling her to get her weapon and to do these things. And she's kind of just yelling into the room about her confusion. And then the weapons go away and the door opens and suddenly she finds herself essentially living in a video game. Where people are coming to kill her, to kill each other, to try to find their way out of this building that they're in, and she's got nothing because she didn't act fast enough. And the whole time it's great because everybody else has seemed to piece all of this together and like accepted it and is moved on and is like building their alliances and doing all this stuff, and she's just literally like running up to groups of people who could potentially kill her, like, what are we doing? What's happening? Like, why are we here? And they're like, people are gonna kill you. And she's like, why would you do that? And they're like, you're in a game. And like almost like Running Man-esque, where she like, they're like, look, you have life stats on, like, did you not see that? And she's like, whoa, what? And like every time she tries to make a decision, it's like 5 seconds too late. So she's just completely lost in this. But she's kind of like the voice of humanity in this game of people who are like, well, I guess we all are fighting each other or we're going to die. So really great. I got to hear about this book this week and it's going to get really cool. I'm so excited to see A Wave Blue World back.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, and they said that that's kind of they kind of only want to do like 4 books a year or so. They don't want to overwhelm it, and that includes like whether it's a graphic novel or like an ongoing series. Like they just, it is a family-run operation, so it's like a guy and his wife, and they have like one person who like helps with marketing and sales. And so, you know, they want to pick the books that they want to pick, and they want to take their time with them. And I love that, and they've never done wrong. I feel like every Away Blue World title I've read, and they introduced me at least to Stephanie Phillips because they had Avery from Stephanie Phillips 2 years ago, I think it was now. And so I love that you can always find something good from them. And this is going to be great. Definitely. From Whatnot Publishing, we have issue 1 of Liquid Kill.
I will let you do this one because I was very confused by this book. I'm going to be entirely honest with you.
This one starts with, I read it twice, so I felt
I was like, oh.
It starts with a person on a boat who has taken somebody hostage and is like, hey, you've got like, you know, you're getting your threats. I want the information. If you don't give me the information, I'm going to kill you. And they're like, you're going to kill me either way. And the information's not going to do you any good. So I'm not going to waste my time giving it to you. And then we kind of back up and see the story of how that character basically, like, not the person that they held hostage, but the person holding them hostage. I feel like we back up and we kind of see their first step onto this path. And so the first half of the book is this moment of darkness and this person being a villain, seemingly a villain. But the second half of the book is their origin story, essentially, and us learning that what they know isn't necessarily what they thought it was, which is the only information we get from the hostage, because they say, this person's like, I'm after the men who did this to me, and the only thing that the hostage says is who said it was men. And that's when we kind of go into the backstory and we get to see this past and who those people are. And honestly, when I read it the second time, I was like, wow, that was actually really well done. And I totally am glad I slowed down and read it again, because seeing what that was, I was like, that's the setup for whatever it's going to be is actually a good setup once you like slow down and like look it through slower. Because I read it kind of quickly on the airplane the first time, and I was like, I was the same. I was like, I missed something in there. So I went back today to check it, and I found that one line, and I was like, oh, and then now we're going back, and we're defining that, and now I know everything I need to know to keep going.
I think the only issue that I really see with this book is that all of the characters are very shadowy.
Yes.
And it's very hard to kind of tell which characters are which. So I do feel like it is a book that you need to read slowly and kind of try and figure out a way to decipher which characters are which, because there was definitely moments where I was like, okay, wait, is this a flashback? Is this the same character as this character? And so it is kind of tricky.
Yeah, it's kind of like All Against All, where the art style makes it to where you almost have to slow down a little bit more on what you're reading and piece it together.
Yeah, but it was also one of those, too, where I was like, okay, I'm very intrigued by this story. Like, I want to know, but also, Yeah.
Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do this one, because I feel like I want to talk about that one a little bit more.
Okay, cool.
You know?
Yeah.
So this is Blue Book, issue 1. This is a Tiny Onion book, because we've got James Tynion writing, and Michael Avon Oeming, one of my favorite artists, doing the art. And this is your UFO book. I mean, it is very much what you would expect this first issue. We see an older couple who are traveling back home from a trip. And while they are driving late at night after dinner, they notice something in the sky. And they keep pulling over and pulling out their binoculars. And of course, the wife is like, no, I'm pretty sure that's something. And then the husband's like, oh, it's it's probably an airplane. And then she's like, well, no, the way it moves. He's like, it's a military airplane. And she's like, well, I think it's following us. And he's like, it's probably kids or something. Like, he has all of these, like, crazy excuses for it. And then, of course, she's like, no, pull the car over. Here's the binoculars. Look at this. And it's a very interesting little story. I like kind of how we see it. And it almost, too, feels a little bit like it could be a one-shot, the way that they did all of this. And then the back half of this is a really great story. It starts out with the boy sitting on a beach, and he sees a flying creature. And he's really amazed by it. But then it cuts to another group of boys who are wandering around town in New York City, and one of the boys sees this giant elephant hotel, and he's like, oh, my dream is to go in there because when my family came over to this country, that was the first thing. And I'll flip to the art because the art's very different. And he's like, yeah, when my parents came over here, the hotel is what they saw first before they even saw the Statue of Liberty. It was like that hotel stood out. But of course, like most things, most landmarks in New York, they burn down.
It's on Coney Island. There was a fire in Coney Island.
Yeah, and so it burns down. And of course, like, they're making fun of him for wanting to go to this hotel because of what it's actually used for. And then he gets kind of bummed out that his friends are making fun of him, and he goes and sits on the beach, and that other boy approaches him and tells him the story of, like, hey, yeah, one time I saw this flying thing, and it was probably a man in a suit, but we don't know, and I come here all the time in hopes that I get to see it again. And he was like, but hey, sit on this beach because you may find something really cool as well. So I'm very curious to see if we're going to continue to see the UFO story, and then maybe also have these other kind of, what's the term I would be looking for?
I've heard it was kind of anthology.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked both of these, both stories in here. I thought they were both really well done. I think this is a solid start to this one.
I think that Dark Horse has shown me my future in this James Tynion book, because the way that couple argues, where he's like, it's just gonna be me and Matt when we're older, because she's like, the whole time she's like, we're being followed, and he's like, you're being paranoid, and she's like, no, it's this, and he's like, that's not a thing. Yeah. And they keep arguing, but then when they do finally stop, and he's like, I'm gonna get out of the car and go check, she's like, what are you doing? Why would you get out of the car? And I'm like, this is just me and Matt when we're older. Like, no, and he, like, this is a thing. And so I've seen my future now, and there's gonna be aliens in it, apparently. So, thanks, James Tynion and Dark Horse, because I just feel like that's what old Chin and Matt are gonna...
Only if you're driving late at night up in the Pennsylvania area.
Could happen.
And also the 1 in 5 glow-in-the-dark berry?
Is it? Because I just put my fingers all over it.
I don't think so. I licked it earlier.
It doesn't have the glow-in-the-dark now.
I don't think that has the glow-in-the-dark. No, that's the regular one. There's the glow-in-the-dark one. I didn't take it out of the bag and bore, so...
Just check.
No, I checked them when I checked them in with gloves on, because they're all gloss covers in general.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I might be being paranoid.
I'm the paranoid
You're
one.
the paranoid one.
Nope, you're good.
From Vault Comics, we have issue 1 of Godfell. And for those of you who are fans of We Only Find Them When They're Dead, and Barbaric, you kind of almost mix the two together with this. You do start the first 5 pages, and Phil and I were talking about this earlier, the first 5 pages are very high fantasy feeling. And so for those of you who are like us and you get overwhelmed like immediately when you see like the high fantasy storytelling, I'm here to tell you that's not what the story is like. The first 5 pages are giving you the history. And so it kind of, it has a lot in it. It's that narration, and it's a little heavy, but it's worth it because you need all that information to get to the story, and this story is awesome. It follows a woman who is a soldier in an army, who is the like best soldier they've ever had. She's like Xena. Like everywhere she goes, it just takes out everybody, and like all of the men everywhere in the world are like afraid of her. Like there's a point where she like comes up to these two guys and they're like, aren't you so and so? And she's like, yeah, and we can do this my way or your way. And they just like drop all of their gear and run because they like don't want to fight her. But the whole thing is that like she's been told, hey, you do this, your time is over, this is your last night in the war. And then, of course, they come and they say, good news, you're all going to a new war. We've expanded how far we're going to go. And she's like, you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm going home. And along her path home, she meets a young girl who is like, hey, I need help. Please help me. Like, come with me. And she's like, dude, I'm not doing that anymore. That's not who I am. And she's like, you kind of owe all of us because you destroyed all of our, like, cities and towns and stuff in the war. Anyway, she ends up teaming up with this girl, and they end up going to a place where the only way through is to go around a massive god that has fallen. And she doesn't believe in the gods. She thinks it's ridiculous, and she's literally standing at the foot of a god, and she's like, still, it's not a god. It's another thing. And it will take weeks and weeks for them to go around the god, so she decides she's not going to do that. She's going to go through it. And they've set up like this crazy structure like inside the god, and the girl tells her nobody that's gone in has come out, and they don't know what's going to happen. And she's like, well, I've made it through everything else I've done. I'll make it through this too. Up to you if you want to go with me. And it kind of leaves with her going into this like setup for them traveling through the god. And I cannot wait because it's vault. So whatever comes in issue 2, I'm already here for. It's going to be fantastic. But just, this has been, it's going to be great because it's like, you know, you still have all the people who are like, this is my part of the god, kind of like in We Only Find Them When They're Dead, where they're like trying to like harvest the different parts, but they're like claiming them instead. So instead of taking them back as food, it's like people are picking parts of this god to like be their home. Or maybe they are gonna eat it eventually, but they're like, that's my territory. And so this is like filled with all of these different people and beings that she's gonna have to fight her way through. And it's just 2 girls traveling through this alone, like, to do it. I'm so stoked. It's gonna be great. Up next, we have a new publisher. Very excited to talk about them. I talked about them on the Live 5, which was really the Live 7 because I included both of these books on there. But I was fortunate also to meet them, so I have lots to say about this. But this is Viz 8 Media, Viz 8 Entertainment, and this is issue 1 of Changelings. So go ahead and tell them what it's about first. It's VISI8. It's Viz 8.
Viz 8. I just want to start by saying 2 solid titles to put out. We're going to talk about the other one here in a second. But, of course, being a fan of kaijus, this book immediately spoke to me because the story starts out with a kaiju attacking a large port city in Indonesia and begins wreaking havoc. And, of course, you're sitting there thinking, all right, a kaiju's attacked. Where is this going to go? And then we're introduced to a boy named Arga, who lives in a beautiful forest, and he is just kind of like hanging out. And they're like, yeah, there's this boy here, and he dives into a pond and pops out in the city, this port city, and approaches the kaiju and is like, all right, it's time for me to calm this thing down. And so he goes about that. And we are also introduced to Durjana, which is it Jordana or Jordana? Yeah, Durjana, who is his sister. And we find out that she was the one who summoned this kaiju to the city. So this is very much going to be a battle between siblings who have powers. You get to see Argus' powers very much at the forefront here in this first issue. You get to see how he handles the kaiju, and you know, there's a little rift between these siblings.
And they're not necessarily really siblings. Because it is changelings, and it's kind of also a hint towards the concept of like the fairy, like we left the sickly kid and we took a strong, like, human baby in exchange. But they're demons and not fairies. And so it's almost like you got your new gods, like your Mr. Miracle story going on, where it's like, oh, you were the child of the humans, like allegedly the good guys, and we demons took you and raised you, and now are you also going to be a demon, whereas this person has been raised to be a good person on Earth. So it's kind of, it feels very like Avatar The Last Airbender meets the Godzilla Monsters and Protectors story, because you do have that. But they are actually an Indonesian company. Okay. And they were really excited to say that that's actually the main, like, largest port in Indonesia that they are destroying in the book. And so it's drawn to look exactly like it. And they were like, we just wanted to see kaijus wreck it. They were like, we're so excited. But yeah, they are actually an Indonesian company. This is going to stay pretty young adult most of the time, but it definitely appeals like a Godzilla movie, and Avatar The Last Airbender. It definitely has a all ages appeal for sure. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go. It's not going to go one issue and then into like a trade. This is going to go like full on single issues for the story. I'm really excited about this book. I think it's going to be a great story, and the cast of characters that they've already introduced is so much fun. And I'm just like you said, a new publisher and 2 solid books. We're going to talk about the second one in our picks of the week. But they are nailing it, crushing it, and there is more to come from them as a publisher that I got to hear some sneak peeks about, so I was really excited. And then lastly in this category, and these 2 are at the end because they could have easily just gone into Picks of the Week for me. But from Battle Quest Comics, I'm so excited to have a new Battle Quest title and a solidly young adult story. This is The Trident of Aurelia #1. Matt, when I was processing the comics, I actually did put my stack of the ones that needed to go on the wall next to where Matt was bagging and boarding, and he bagged and boarded this one and was like, this looks like it's like a YA Aquaman, but with a girl. Why does Shannon never talked about this on the live stream and like brought it out to tell me that? And I was like, I'm going to read it this week and we will definitely be talking about it. And absolutely, that's what I'm here to talk about right now. This is the story of a young girl who, her dad was on a parliament of people who were sent to protect a village, and the village kind of fell into their own cult-like mindset over this red tide that came into their town, and eventually got rid of all of the parliament members that were in this town. And this young girl who's never known her mother, who has been made to believe her mother died during childbirth, has lived on her own for a while now. And the number one thing she wants to do is break into the library and read books about the history of the town and learn more about the way the government should be working and the things they're doing wrong, and kind of educate herself through books. And that's illegal. So she gets arrested for reading books. And while she's in jail, she meets somebody who was also kind of an assistant to these parliament people, and learns all the history of all of the parliamentarians that were destroyed, and kind of learns what her fate might be, but what it should have been at the same time. And eventually the time comes where they do take her to sacrifice her to the red tide, which has become the god of this village. And things change really quickly after the sacrifices are made, and you get a really great story and a really great setup for what I'm stoked to see where this goes. This could have been a lot cheesier than, like, I was scared that they were going to go in some really cheesy directions, but they're definitely setting it up to have a solid story to back it, and I'm really curious to see what this like red tide is going to come out to be, and how they're going to stop it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Another solid, because this is only their second book, right?
Mm-hmm. They had Nomad the Conqueror before, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too, because the trade is out. So, all right. So some picks of the week we've got for you. Just a couple. I'm gonna do this way. First up from Ablaze Comics is The End of the Boogeyman. I have told you this was kind of a horror the whole time. But I'm torn on this because it also just kind of feels like a Miyazaki film. I have gotten to the end, and I'm just going to tell you right now, like, if Studio Ghibli made this into a movie, you would have no idea that it wasn't, like...
I thought for a second you were about to say what the ending was.
No. No, if they made this into a movie, you would have no idea that, like, Miyazaki didn't create it. It is the story of a young boy who sees his parents die and is having nightmares, it feels like nightmarish boogeymen are chasing after him. And a boogeyman who is the grandfather comes in and rescues him from all of the monsters that are chasing him. And they go on this quest, essentially, to get the little boy to a place where he can be safe. And you see them fight against every kind of creature that could live in a nightmare, and you see all of these things happen to him. And this is the culmination of this battle that they're fighting. And this is just a really, really beautiful story about how we deal with grief, and how grief doesn't go away, and how it lingers, and it feels like nightmares that you'll never escape from, and how the only thing sometimes that we feel is big enough to fight our grief is more darkness. Like you sometimes just feel like a bigger darkness is what you need to keep you from falling into all of the terrible things that are coming for you. And just the ending of this was, like, I didn't know this was going to be the last issue. And so when I got to the end, this was another one of those. We just talked about, like, books that make you cry. This is another one of those where I was like, are these tears? Like, is my heart breaking or is it happy? I don't know. Such a good book. I mean, Ablaze just pulls out these incredible stories all the time. And this is another one. Seriously, if you're a Miyazaki fan, grab the 6 issues that were this, and just know that it does feel very dark, but so do most Miyazaki films a lot of times. So this is going to be a good one.
And it's over.
Wow. Yeah. I hope they do a beautiful, beautiful trade for it. We don't normally do this, but we're going to cover a big 2 book, because
I wasn't sure if you were going to let it slide.
I'm going to let it slide because of its Treadmore.
Okay.
No.
So this is the end of Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise. It is a 4-issue miniseries written and drawn by Treadmore with Heather Moore on colors. And this is a book that I wanted to put in the picks of the week, mainly for the art. But also, I feel like this is kind of a book that flew under the radar when it shouldn't have, because of the success of Silver Surfer Black. I think maybe some of that had to do with Donny Cates being on that creative team. But this is the perfect art style for Doctor Strange. And what we have here is a story about Doctor Strange who wakes up in what he thinks is a dream, and it turns out to be a different universe. And in this universe, we are introduced to a lot of wild and crazy creatures, nightmarish, all sorts of crazy things. And essentially, Doctor Strange is tasked with helping save this universe. And one thing that he has to do is help one of the creators. In this universe, we have 2 creators that split off. One became the good entity and one became the bad. And the good one births Ions. Is it Aeons? Aeons. And basically they birth new children to grow up and become, pillars of this universe. But this evil entity goes out and sends his sidekick Coin to basically go out and kill all of these children as they are born, to prevent that from happening. And Doctor Strange is actually sent as a midwife to make sure that this child is born. And this is the final battle. We get to see Doctor Strange and Coin go head to head as Doctor Strange tries and saves the universe. The really cool thing about this book is it has an ending, and when it's all said and done, everything is set back to status quo. This doesn't affect the Marvel Universe or Doctor Strange in any way. It is one story all the way through, It is about dealing with life and the concept of death and how we view the world. It's very tied in religion and kind of Tradmore's a little bit of maybe how he views religion. But it is a beautiful, beautiful story. I think if you are somebody looking for not necessarily more Doctor Strange, but more very uniquely told Marvel stories, this is one that you have to go to. And I'm also hoping at some point that this becomes like an essential Doctor Strange story.
So I can tell you, because I've already ordered it, it is getting a treasury-sized trade. So I will tell you that. So hopefully it will get added into more collections. But if you saw the oversized Treasury Edition Silver Surfer Black, that was impossible to get after like a day. There is going to be a treasury size of this as well. So we'll see. I mean, Silver Surfer Black went down in a huge way after it was all said and done. And honestly, I feel like the amount of people that picked this up in comparison to Silver Surfer Black was actually pretty much the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was one of those books where I had people coming in who were like, I am just here to subscribe to Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise. Like, they were like, and they still don't have anything else on their pull list. Like, they only get this kind of thing. So
I just feel like I haven't seen as many people like on the internet talk about it. And I thought that maybe that had to do with, Donny Cates being on Silver Surfer Black, and that kind of came out at the height of him.
Donny talks about his books a lot on the internet, so it's easy to like spread that information, whereas Chad's not really on the internet. Correct. So you don't have as much of it like filtering from the creator, where it's like constantly in tease format. But I definitely think readers are coming in and snatching this up like crazy. I mean, I don't really have much backstock. I don't have any of issue 1, so.
Also, if you do want that Treasury Edition, order it
in advance. Tell your store now,
get it
wherever that is.
pre-ordered as soon as you can, because it'll be gone, and it's going to look beautiful in Treasury Edition.
Is this Tradmore's first time writing?
I don't know.
Yes, I believe so.
It seems like it, but I don't know.
I thought that was a cool reason to include it on this indie show.
Yeah.
That you have this independent-ish artist, who's writing a book and gets a chance at it.
And what's crazy, too, is it's very poetic. Like, the way that he wrote this book, very much like The Fallen, where I was like, this is a lot of words, and I'm not 100% sure what is being said here. It definitely is well written. I love this book. I was so excited when they announced it, and I knew the moment that first issue came out. I was like, there's a Treasury Edition, and I have to have it.
My favorite thing about Chad Moore is he's kind of the reason that we do, like one of the reasons we do have Donnie the writer, because Donnie actually started at SCAD to be a comic artist.
Oh, okay.
And he said, I got in class, and next to me was Jeff Shaw on one side, and I look over and Chad Moore's on the other, and the first time I saw them do work for class, I was like, you know what, I'll just change my major and we'll make books together. And so he was like, I'm not gonna be that ever. Yeah. And I was like, if I was in class with Chad Moore, I would do the same thing. That's fair. I'd be like, you know what, I don't know. I'm just gonna hire you. I'll be back.
I like that Chad Moore has gone to this very stylized art style, because his early stuff was not like this at all. The first book I ever read from him, and what actually sold me on him, is a book called Luther Strode. It's an Image title, super cool book, very violent, very much in the sense of specs. It's about a kid who orders one of those things like powerful pills that help you become stronger, and he actually becomes a superhero. And it's a really, really cool book. Image did put out a really nice all 30 issue, or not all 30, it's 6 volumes. Was that 6 issues? 6 times?
36.
Like 18 issues? If it's 6 issues and 3 volumes?
Oh, 3 volumes. You said 6 volumes. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. 6 issues and 3 volumes.
Yeah,
but,
18.
It's in a nice hardcover, all collected beautifully. And so it's cool to see that, and then now see this very stylized art style that he's doing. But I will champion Tradmore forever and ever.
Yeah. Next up in picks of the week, we have issue 1 of Kara, Guardian of the Realms, from Viz8 Entertainment. And I love this book. I'm going to hand this to you. Love this book. And I think if you're a fan of Twig, you are going to love this book's art style because it does have a lot of that. But this book starts out with two little boys who are in like an airship, like kind of spaceship type thing. And they are flying over this forest realm and they're like, hey, we went back in time. Let's see what we have. And then we just kind of move away from the little boys and we go on land and we meet Kara, who rescues that's just beautiful. Yeah. Who rescues this little pink creature who is essentially this realm's version of a cat. And it only says meow. And what I love about this book is that the cat only ever says meow, but Kara has complete conversations with it. And as somebody who has complete conversations with my cat, I was like, same. But it's just kind of her adventure of like going through and rescuing, you see this like tree creature, which is super cool. And that obviously these stories are going to intersect in some major ways and Kara's going to have to save the world and somehow. I know this, but this is such a great all ages story. Like as an adult, I love it, but I also cannot wait to put it in the hands of every child that comes into this store. And I know you love it too, so I'm giving you time.
What was that movie with the little fairy who had to save the forest? Fern Gully. Yeah. I feel like that's the story that this is heading towards because these two boys, when they get to this planet, they're like, oh, perfect. It's got all this stuff we need to save our planet. And then we're introduced to her. Yeah, I fell in love with this book very, very quickly. I love the little cat creature. I also love that she like plays this flute to kind of like calm this like tree worm down. It looks like a tree. It's like camouflages into the trees. And then like you said, I mean the conversation between the two of them, and she's like, "Oh, you're Lunar. Nice to meet you. I'm Kara." And it's just oh god, it's so good. It is such a fantastic first issue. Like, I think I got 5 pages in, and then I messaged you, and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a pick of the week."
Yeah, you were like, "Okay, definitely," because I think I told you like, "Oh, the Visate books are so good," and it's got an I, but I think they said Visate when they said it, like they blended it together. But Visiate. I don't know. Visiate. I don't know how to say it. But I was like, those books like are definitely. Yeah. 2 books you're going to want to read for sure. And then you were like, oh, I'm just starting Kara. It's already a pick of the week. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, because, very much like you, I think I'm drawn to kids' books, like kid-friendly books. I think a lot of it has to do with the art and just kind of the fun aspect of it all. And I feel like this is going to be one of those where it's like, it's got the fun art. I think Kara is going to be a really interesting character to follow. And it's going to kind of have those fun, little bits, but there's going to be such a beautiful story told. Yeah. Very much like kind of like Ajana a little bit, where it's just like, I'm having fun with this book, but it's also telling this very beautiful story. Of all the books, I mean, even Picks of the Week over Doctor Strange, this was by far my favorite issue of the week,
it was my favorite, and then we got the first issue of a new comic, and it became my favorite. So last week I talked about we got a panel cover on a canvas from one of our students who came to our class, who came in last week and said, I really want to make a comic book now to go with the cover that I designed on this canvas for you. So do you have any panel making sheets? And so I sent them home last Sunday with some panel making sheets, and they knew that I didn't get back until today. And so this young student, Ava, came in and brought in the first issue of Lost, also about a cat. This is the week of cat comics. Let's just be honest, cats are the pick of the week. But Ava made this book with the pages, bound it together herself, and did all of the line work and all of the storytelling, and just there's some fantastic work in here, and this is absolutely beautiful. Super impressed with everything that Ava did. I'm not taking any credit at all. I will never say that this is something that this kid even learned in our workshops. Ava is just extraordinarily talented, and I wanted you all to know that you're going to be buying books from Ava someday, and they're going to be some of your favorites, because the story of this cat and how it grows into a giant cat and the adventures that it goes on already in this issue are just fantastic. And the fact that this is made all with crayons and markers is just absolutely extraordinary work. So invest. We talk about kids comics, meaning comics geared towards kids, but I think some of the greatest work that I've ever seen have come from actual kids using their imagination. They have excellent storytelling. This generation that is growing up right now has some of the best art skills I've ever seen, because they are inundated with fantastic comics, and they are growing up looking at all of these people who are making this great work. They have so much manga, and they have so many comic books, and they have so much anime in front of them that they're absolutely just using those skills. And they're starting at 3rd grade with Dogman, and they're just sticking with comics and art their whole lives, and manga, and they're learning to draw what they're seeing. And seriously, the comics that we're going to get from this generation, when they start getting picked up, they're going to blow your mind, because what they're doing, this is the work of somebody in their 11 and 12-year-old range. So what we're going to see when they get to adulthood is going to be, it's gonna blow the Tradmores and all those people out of the water if they stick with stuff like this. So support kids and the books that they make. If you have kids, help them explore their imagination, help them use their art skills, and encourage that, because I think that the work that we're going to see coming from this next generation, I just want you to see this. This was done with crayons and markers in less than a week. 11. Just support kids, support imagination, and just know that you're building a great generation of artists and writers and creators when you do so. And thank you, Ava, for making that for us and sharing it with us. It's absolutely beautiful. We had a person who has worked for Marvel in here today, and even they stopped and looked at it after Ava was gone and was just like, oh my gosh, cannot believe that this kid did this in a week. I'm like, yeah, good thing you're not still at Marvel, because you'd be out of a job by this kiddo. Or hiring this kiddo, one of the two. All right, we've got some more books in stock that I literally just put over in the books in stock because I knew we would never have enough time to get through everything. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. From Opus Comics, we have issue 2 of Hammerfall, which is really cool, high fantasy adventure geared around more metal music. And there are so many cool Opus Comics to come. Issue 34 of Ice Cream Man is out this week, and I haven't read it, so I can't spoil it for Matt. Issue 29 of Something is Killing the Children is out. I have read that. It was fantastic as usual. Issue 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 2 is out. Issue 796 of Wonder Woman is out, and Yada Floor is teaming up with Diana again.
Hey.
The story that is going to be happening, like this arc that's coming up for the covers and stuff that I've been ordering, is Mary Marvel. Mary Shazam, I guess we're calling her now, Yada Floor, and Diana all together. And that is a team that I always want and never knew it.
Yeah, 100%.
Tiger Division issue 4 is out. Thor issue 31. We're going to do this one last. Strange Academy Finals issue 4. Getting to the end of Scotty Young's Strange Academy. Immoral X-Men, number 1, part of the Sins of Sinister, not to be confused with Immortal X-Men. Star Wars Yoda, issue 4. Star Wars Dr. Aphra, issue 29. Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man, issue 5 from Taboo. Yes, that Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. Same person that did the Werewolf by Night that came out.
That's cool.
Amazing Spider-Man, issue 20. Scorched, issue 15. She-Hulk, issue 10, with those great Jen Bartel covers. Savage Avengers, also issue 10. Punisher War Journal Base, number 1. It is the 90s all over again. Nightwing issue 101. Planet Hulk Worldbreaker issue 4. I did not tell you it's the 90s all over again. We got all the crazy stuff happening. Harley Quinn, Legion of Bats from the animated series of Harley Quinn. This is issue 5. The Flash, issue 793. Deadpool, issue 4. Catwoman, 52. I love that cover. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, issue 12. Black Adam, issue 8. The Return of Betsy Braddock's Captain Britain, issue 1. Titan United, Blood Pack, you ended up talking about that. 6 of 6, that series is wrapped. Sabretooth and the Exiles, issue 4. Carnage, issue 10, with this cool cover. Deceased, War of the Undead Gods, issue 6. Gotham City Police Department, Blue Wall, issue 5. Gru, Gods Against Gru, issue 3. The Witcher, Ballad of the Two Wolves, issue 3. Undiscovered Country, issue 23. 20th Century Men, number 6, which I think is the last one of that. Book of Shadows, issue 4. This is your Valiant crossover kind of thing. Dragon Age, issue 2. Frank Miller's Ronin, book 2, issue 2. Ninja Funk, issue something. I think we're on 4. Yeah. From Whatnot. Hellboy in Love, issue 3. Junkyard Joe, issue 5. Voyages, issue 4 from Image Comics. Monstrous, it hit in issue 43. We were getting close to 50.
Wow.
Yeah, and still looking incredible. DC Lazarus Planet Omega, wrapping that up before the dawn of DC, which we'll talk about in just a second. Saga Chapter 62. If you saw last time we had Saga on the show, you know the most incredible cliffhanger since issue 50 happened, and we're going to see how that plays out. Lovesick issue 5 will always just go in this category because I can't show you a single page on the live stream, but it's a mature, by far, Red Room kind of story. And then the Dawn of DC launches with Superman number 1 from Joshua Williamson. I know you read this and you were very excited about it. While I grab the trades, do you want to say anything before
Yeah, I will preface this by saying I've never been the biggest Superman fan, but every time a new series comes out, I'm always intrigued to want to read it. And Joshua Williamson being a favorite of mine in terms of what he's done with DC. I mean, I will say his Flash series run is probably one of my favorite Flash runs, if not maybe like top 2 behind Jeff Johns. But this is a solid first issue. I believe it was Warworld is where Superman was. So he is now back being Superman and Clark Kent. And it's there's some really, really cool stuff that they did in this first issue that I'm really looking forward to see what they do with it moving forward. You know, some Lex Luthor stuff that I really enjoyed. So.
I just love that cover.
It's a great cover.
Lois.
It was a great first issue. I think this will be the first time that I try and keep up with a Superman run outside of when Morrison did it in New 52.
I'm very excited. I didn't get to read it yet, but Josh had a lot of good things to say about it, so I'm excited to see what he does.
I am happy that he is kind of now the big writer at DC. They're kind of giving him the reins to do everything. I know he's doing Green Arrow's the other one he's got coming. So I'm excited. Donna, you know, Marvel fans always rip on DC for resetting the universe like every 5 or 6 years. With all these big events that kind of resets everything. But, I mean, you have Joshua Williamson and Tom Taylor being like the 2 main people who are handling DC moving forward. So you can't be upset with that at all.
I think it's going to be really good. And the stuff that they've got planned, it sounds really good.
I mean, we get the Titans being kind of like the new big main team instead of the Justice League, so... Which
is really smart because so many of the kids, the teenagers are getting into the comics right now, and they're coming from that Beast Boy Loves Raven series from Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo. And the show, and they're wanting the Titans, and so seeing the Titans in there. But all of the superheroes, if you are a fan of the classic Justice League, they're not getting rid of them. They are there, like you said, Green Arrow is coming back. It's not, this isn't like Future State where it was like, okay, we're going to get rid of the classic heroes and we're going to go with the younger ones. This is like, hey, we have all of these characters. They're all going to be a part of it, and we're going to build out this continuity that works for everybody and tells good stories. And the point is to tell good stories, and it's good that that's what they're focusing on. All right, we got some trades in stock, and honestly, every single trade we have in stock has been a pick of the week, at least one issue out of the trades. So up first is Lonesome Hunters from Dark Horse Comics. This is a fantastic story about a young boy who's given the sword to, like, save the world and chooses to never do anything with it, and now he's an old man and he has no choice. Great story. I love it. Super excited for everybody to grab that trade and read it. From AWA, we have Sacrament. This is a priest who has lost his faith performing an exorcism in space.
Yeah, this was. I remember when this cover came out, this first issue cover. I was like, I want to read this book, and I think these issues started coming out when I was not here yet. And so I've been waiting for this trade to come out because I'm like, I want to read this book.
Also, last week we talked about it because we mentioned the $9.99 AWA trades, or maybe 2 weeks ago.
$10.
And Matt was like, oh, but they've had some that are $14.99. I talked to Axel Alonso about that. The goal is to keep as many as they can at $9.99. The reason, of course, for Marjorie Finnegan being more is because it was like 8 issues, so it was like almost a double trade, and that's why it was $14.99. But the goal is to keep AWA trades at $9.99. Axel wants it to be an entry point for those who are looking for something, and so the goal is...
It worked for Image back when they were doing that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of Volume 1s just going off the shelves because people were like, $10 to try something new, why not? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. We'll do this one. Up next from Ahoy Comics, we have Justice Warriors. This is the ridiculous parody of police in America, but they're not in America. They're in a weird alien country, but it's just all of the weird stories you hear on the news parodied, basically. And we're kind of just dealing with, like, a city under fire and some crazy stuff. Like, it's like all of the things you hear on the news coming to life in an alien world in the most satirical way possible. It's fantastic. From Image, we have Golden Rage, Volume 1, Issues 1 through 5. This is the Golden Girls meets Lord of the Flies. It's Golden Girls are all people who have no longer able to have their period, are sent to live on an island because they feel the society has decided that means they are not valuable to society. And initially it's just the elderly women, and for the first time we see somebody beyond that coming in. A younger woman who was just unable to have children is sent for the first time, and it kind of changes the dynamic for the island. From Battle Quest Comics, their first trade with Nomad the Unconquerable, and this is kind of a very 300-esque story. It's like a king who, in order to continue to rule his people, needs to go out on one of those like solo quests, and the places he ends up and the stories that he acquires through that time just get bigger and bigger. And the whole thing is done in blue scale instead of grayscale. Can you open it just to show them really fast? Because it's such an interesting thing. We don't see a lot of blue scale comics. Like, you know, we lean into those black and whites, we lean into those grays. This was such a choice to do it all in blue. And it works really well because he does start in kind of an icy area, and then he goes to a place that's all water. So it kind of feels really natural to have that blue, but you get a lot of those weird like Hayden Sherman style panels and things like that on some of the stories. I know I ended up giving a lot of people this and just being like, look at how cool that looks, and showing them those panels and them falling into the book from that. From Boom Studios, a trade I have been waiting for, I feel like my whole life, is Volume 1, possibly Olive, but no, I think they did announce a second volume. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking. I could just have dreamed it. But Alice Ever After is this great and wonderful story. If you have ever loved Alice in Wonderland, the story, this feels like Alice in Wonderland because it has that Lewis Carroll style writing. But it also is Alice being told constantly that it's just because she's, taking drugs, or she's because she's mad. And so she ends up checking herself into an insane asylum, and we see all of the cast of characters that we witnessed in Alice in Wonderland coming in to play as people who are in the insane asylum. And it is all in that Victorian time period. So it's just so great. I want to actually have a tea time book club where we just read this book one issue at a time, because I think it would be so fantastic to talk about. And also, I just want an excuse to drink tea. So if you're down, hit me up. And then lastly, this was not ever a pick of the week, but it is, let's just say it is right now, because everybody loves him. It's wonderful, but this is the illustrated Weird Al from Z2 Comics and Al Yankovic. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm so stoked to read it. I'm super excited this has been a long time coming. They announced it before the movie even launched, that it would be coming out soon, and I have been waiting to get my hands on it, so I'm so glad it's finally here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I still haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh, man, you need to watch the movie. Daniel Radcliffe crushes it.
I know.
So good.
I'll get there.
And it's actually funny, because since Al is alive and was highly involved in the thing, the music is just actually Al. Like, Daniel's not singing, which I was, looking forward to Daniel singing it.
I can't believe you watched anything else.
I'll tell you this. Last night, I double featured the Magic Mike movies before I watched the Weird Al movie.
That was a choice that you made.
That was a choice you made. Are you not a Weird Al fan?
No, I'm a huge Weird Al fan.
Weird.
It's not streaming anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah, it's on Roku channel.
I don't have
literally
Roku.
Oh, well, come over here. It was only made for Roku, so you'll never be able to watch it.
Made for Roku.
And that's why. I have to stick to what streaming services I do have.
It's a computer thing, too. It's free on the computer. Just go to Roku.com.
It's not a monthly subscription?
Yeah.
No.
I follow him online, and it's always like, hey, you can just go right here and watch it. Watch it! And then zooms in on his face like everything else that he does.
No, Roku, you don't have to pay for Roku.
Yeah, it's totally free.
Roku is free. Roku just aggregates everything else.
Oh.
It's like it makes your TV a smart TV. And so you don't actually have to pay Roku, though.
And I don't have to have a Roku?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Right on there.
Good to know.
Yeah, so you should do that.
I'll watch that.
All right, comics out this week.
I knew there was a reason why I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, I was confused too. I was like, that's weird. You seem like the kind of person who would have watched that immediately.
And yes, the Magic Mike was by choice. And it was a good choice.
It was a choice.
It was a good
you
choice.
want to be tickled?
By Channing Tatum.
He lives in St. Pete.
Don't tell me that. Well, the movie is set in Tampa.
Because that's where he's from.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and he was actually a stripper in Tampa. And more things I should not tell you, I know. Comics out this week. Rogue and Gambit are back with a new series. So that number 1 launches this week. We've got, speaking of Marvel books, Hallows Eve is getting her own book that starts this week. And Gwen Stacy's back with Spider-Gwen Shadow Clones. And there are Greg Land variants for every single issue for that, too. I Hate This Place returns with issue 6. Phantom Road number 1 launches this week. Where Monsters Lie number 2 is out. Koshi in Hell from the Mignolaverse. Red Zone number 1. DC versus Ruby is back. Ruby is back in DC Comics this week with issue 1 of DC Ruby.
Oh, it's DC versus, or it's just...
I think it's just DC Ruby. I don't know if it's versus or not. I thought it was versus, but this doesn't say versus.
Because it was Justice League versus last time.
I think it's just DC/Ruby now. Okay. Castle Full of Blackbirds 4. My Little Pony 10, All Night and Every Day number 1, Breath of Shadows number 2, Jujutsu Kaisen has a new manga out this week, Darkland number 3, the Darkwing Duck facsimile comes out this week, Hunt, Kill, Repeat from Madcave comes out this week. It's very good. We're going to be excited. Deadfellows number 1. Rock and Roll Hell number 1, Titan Mouse of Might number 2. I know you like that first one. Red Winter Fallout number 3, Road Trip to Hell number 3, Bone Check number 3 is out this week. I say all that, but I might be wrong because some of those books come from Lunar and they are coming like a week behind. So I know the Pink Lemonade 6 will actually be one that we have next week, which is the last issue of Pink Lemonade. Some stores got it this week, but like Lunar stores are getting it next week. So these might be delayed more than what I'm saying. Hollowed number 1, which I didn't look up what that was. It's not crazy. So it actually looks like a small week, but I know that this last week I read a really big list and we didn't get some of those. So I know that some of those books are going to come in this next week. So again, I don't know. You can just go ahead and write down right now that Pink Lemonade number 6, the Shannon's pick of the week next week, because I'm super stoked for that. It is the last issue. I'm kind of sad about that, but they have already announced what the artist will be working on next, so I'm pretty stoked about seeing him continue on with new stuff. And it's gonna be a good week. I'm excited. Always excited for new comics, but there's gonna be so many things to read. Our March event calendar will be going up this week as well, so if you're looking for events that will be coming to Bat City in March, keep an eye out. There's also going to be some April events already dropping, because we're going to start putting those things on there for you to look. And then we've got, I think that's it. Is that everything?
You've got a list of all of these signings coming up at CGC.
Please let them know.
You don't need to necessarily do the dates or anything, but all of these, great list.
Okay, so great list of people coming up at CGC. If you have any of these creators' books and you want to send them into CGC, please shoot us a message or come in and see Matt. Joe Staten, Greg Land, Chris Claremont, Dave Gibbons. So grab those Watchmen. What, you're freaking out?
They're all great.
Oh, I know. Alex Ross, Bob Layton, John Boy Myers, Andy, what does it say? What did you write?
What I write?
I can't see because the Y goes over it. What is that?
Oh, Andy Lanning.
Andy Lanning. Okay, I was like, is that Steve Englehart, Frank Miller, Klaus Johnson, and Adam Hughes. So you probably have
Frank Miller. Oh,
Frank Miller.
Yeah, because he's going to be here for MegaCon.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So, and some of those might be in conjunction with that. So if you have any of those books, what chances are, if you've collected comics for a while, you probably have at least one book from most of those, if not all of those people. And if you want to get them signed and graded from CGC, this is your chance. So, like I said, come by the store, talk to Matt. You can shoot a message to Instagram, and I'll tell Matt that you did, because he won't see it. Your best bet is bring your books by, talk to Matt about them, call over, make sure he's here, and that and then come by and let him look at your books and help you figure out what's the best thing to get signed by those creators. Some of them are coming up towards the end of March, so you've got a little bit of time, but not much, especially if you're planning on get those books cleaned and pressed before the signing. I'd come in the next couple of weeks for that. Other than that, it's going to be a great week for comics, because they're going to exist. Spring training started yesterday. Congratulations, baseball fans. Baseball is back. It's time.
I'm excited, and also there's certain things about the game so far
I know.
that I'm very...
The rules changed. We're not happy about it. That's another live stream in and of itself. But we're drinking Lisabella Pinot Noir tonight as we wind down our weekend, and we hope you enjoyed winding down your weekend with us. If you're watching on Facebook, we'll be back here every Sunday night at 9 p.m.-ish live. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you this week. Bye!